an apartment now these days in Barcelona, which is great fun, bought for cash, which we're renovating. So I'm kind of at that fun stage. But most importantly for you guys, we sourced over 200 deals with an end value of 45 million. At a purchase price, agreed purchase price of 30 million quid. So gross 15 million in equity. Why is that important? Well, it's important because in order to go to that scale, I've had to be very curious about how to succeed in property. Because if you go that fast, because I did it in 4.5 years, and you're not going to you're not doing it in an effective and scaled up manner, and you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're going to trip up. So what I've been able to do is take my curiosity for property with millions and millions of pounds worth of knowledge and turn it into, you ready, Saturday afternoon, data and statistics. So come on, we got to love data and statistics, because that is what's going to make you a lot of money in property. So keep taking notes. Don't be turned off by the word data. I've also done hundreds of renovations. So just, built houses, houses to flats, HMOs, normal refurbs, planning permission, split gardens, sold them off. I split a garden and sold it for 75 quid in the global pandemic, which is quite good fun. Raised millions of pounds in private finance, both joint ventures and private finance. Again, there's no way I could have done it without that finance. And you've got to appreciate that over time, that's going to be a route that you'll move to. So why would you do this? Well, assets pay your salary. Really simple. It's really great to choose how and when you want to work. You set your hours. So for me, I've just come back from 2 months in Barcelona. So like Therese, you and I work together. Some of us know. And I just worked over in Barcelona while I was renovating the beach apartment. Last year, I did a really lovely tour. Normally, I'm 182 days holiday, 183 days working. And like Jack, when I work, my goodness, I work hard. But last year I was on holiday for 6.5 weeks and my rent income didn't drop. In fact, embarrassingly, it increased. My profit increased on my portfolio by 5 grand because I wasn't there to meddle. I didn't want more things fixed. So we got 3 topics I'm going to cover with you guys. Number 1, deal sourcing. Why do it? Because you don't have enough money to buy houses. Let's be blunt. You don't need to buy the property. It requires very little startup. And it is basically where you match a discounted property and an investor, and within weeks you get paid. So for me, I don't want you necessarily looking at rent to rent. I want you looking at deal sourcing, because it teaches you how to find discounted deals and it teaches you how to work with investors, and you get amazing property knowledge. So let's be blunt. It's when you don't have enough money to go and buy all the houses you want, which is everybody, isn't it? Come on, it was me. It definitely is going to be you guys at some point. Nobody's got enough money to buy all the houses they want. So what did I do? Let's talk about the ladder, because that's transferable to you. Initially, boom, I was doing around 48 to 53 deals a year. So, getting good fees, and I was using those fees to buy assets in my own property portfolio. But in a while, I was like, hang on. Like, I love the fact I'm getting really good fees. And the fastest I got paid was 4 days, but normally it's 8 to 10 to 12 weeks. So you're getting 5 figures within 8 weeks. It's nice. But I'm like, you guys are getting so much more than me. Like, it wasn't unfair because I was really happy with the money I was getting, much more than a day job. But I'm giving you these amazing deals. I mean, 45 million quid's worth of property sourced for 30 million quid. Come on, the guys are getting great deals. So I was like, no, I'm going to take a little bit bigger slice of that pie. So I moved to joint venturing. So what I ended up doing after about year 2.5, I did deal packaging for 5 years. Guys, it's a rat race job being a deal packager, although it's a brilliant job. So you must have an end date on it, because you need to be buying your assets with the money you make. So what I did for about 2.5 years, pure deal packaging and buying my own properties. And then I went, hang on, I'm going to do 50% deal packaging, 50% joint venturing. If you've never seen joint venturing, the way I did it was, say Jack and I were JVing and Jack was the money man. Jack owns the property. So Jack's not sat there thinking, is she going to run away with my house? Because it's in his name. I put a restriction. I call it like a hat. He can't bounce away. So Jack can't run away with the house. I put a restriction on it. Jack gives me the money for the refurb, because I ain't starting until the money's come across. Because guys, I've done an awful lot of these. I've seen every trick in the book. No, thank you. Not that I'm suggesting you would, Jack, but let's just be really clear. It's really simple. And then I do all the renovation, and then it gets sold, and we split the profit 50-50. So Jack beautifully does no work, and I beautifully put no money in. So it suits both our needs, doesn't it? So it's a brilliant uplift, but of course you don't get paid for 5.5 to 9 months, depending on how fast you flip. So if you're going to start with deal packaging, I'd suggest you move up the value ladder, but keep 50% deal packaging and then 50% into joint ventures. So fast cash, bigger cash. So it's good cash, but fast, bigger cash, but slower. Okay. So think about it. And the good news for you guys is to become a deal packager and to actually get into property, you don't need previous deal packaging or property experience, because an awful lot of it is maths. And if you're not good at maths, I'm just going to call it numbers. You don't need to be an expert. I'm back at my dining room table. I did £22.5 million worth of property at my kitchen table before I went and bought my office. So, you know, I like bootstrapping entrepreneurs. I think us bootstrapping entrepreneurs are good. Let's talk about how to get those deals. And let me just blast this out of the water. I'm not going to swear because I respect Jack's meeting, but you can imagine the words I think about the word goldmine area. And they all begin with B and then they continue with S, right? Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It's a piece of marketing ploy to make you guys think there's some mystery, that you're just not part of the VIP group and it's not your own responsibility. Let's talk about the kind of questions you're going to worry about if you're new to property. And don't worry about it. Like, I was new to property too. So we all worry about this stuff. So let's talk about the numbers. I need you to write this down. To get yourself set up correctly, you need a population search area of 250,000. Why? Because you've got fluidity, people buying and people selling. Do you see how I'm saying it's just maths? To get yourself set up correctly, and take this down as a note, you need 100 estate agents in your search area. Why? Fluidity. Enough deals being bought and sold that can pay for 100 offices with maybe, you know, between 4 and 10 estate agents in each office. So there's enough money being made by buying and selling in order for you to find the 1% of deals. And we're going to come on to that just shortly. So if you're debating this, like, oh, I can't find deals in my area, you need to turn, and I call it pub talk. So just remember this, turn that off, okay? Because it's pub talk and you don't need to be working on emotion. Again, you need stats and data, because if you go off hearsay, if you go off pub talk, you're just going to get confused. Ready to write down the next letter notes? In order to find discounted deals, and mind, we did 217 in 4.5 years. I mean, we were quite busy, okay, but 217 with a tiny little team in 4.5 years. 100 phone calls, 25 viewings, 21 offers, 1 or 2 deals. I'm going to repeat that in case you missed it. 100 phone calls, 25 viewings, 21 offers, 1 or 2 deals. How simple is that? So now if you're saying to yourself these questions, oh, I can't find deals in my area, ask yourself, have I done 100 phone calls, 25 viewings, 21 offers? And if I've done 10 phone calls and 3 viewings and 1 offer, that's why you can't find a deal yet. It's just maths. Does that help it simplify it for you guys? Make it, oh, right, I get it. So I just need to monitor the phone calls, the viewings, and the offers. And then I probably need to increase my skill base a bit. But basically, I just need to monitor the kind of work I put in, exactly what you were saying at the beginning, Jack, and then the output I get out. That's finding deals. Oh, and auctions, it's 1 in 4. Now, I know September went mad. Let's just ignore September. It's just a blip. 1 in 4. So I have only ever once gone to an auction and only tried to buy one house. And unsurprisingly, I didn't buy it. Every other time I've ever gone to auction, I've always bought houses. And the most number I bought houses from auction was 7 at the same time. And we'd bid on 30. We had the money for 30 with investors, obviously. So if you are going to auction, never go and try and buy one house. Always try and buy minimum 4 and just come away with whichever one you want to tuck in your handbag or man bag if you're a bloke. Let's come on to deal packaging, because it's a really useful entry point for you guys in the early stage when you just don't have a huge amount of money. It's what I did as well. Why do people want to work with you? There are, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if you don't feel you've met them yet, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in property who are cash rich and time poor. They want to buy discounted properties, but they don't have the time or they don't have the skills to find discounted deals. You're going to commit to making that happen because, quite frankly, you want to get paid to earn the money to buy your own properties. You know, it's a 1-2 step in property. Let's talk about pricing. So many deal packages charge discounted pricing, which just doesn't work. They don't stay in business. Name me many, many property businesses who have stayed in business for a long time, who are deal packages. There are a small number, but they're very, very few because everybody undercharges. I charged 5% of the property price, and I got paid within 30 to 60 seconds of reservation fee. Plus I charged this, a membership fee, £1,000 each, 50 people a year. Now, I still think £1,000 is a fairly substantial amount of money. Why do you do that? Number one, for you, you get the cash flow coming in. That's nice. Okay. So before you even open the doors, you got some bills you can pay. Number two, much more importantly, it builds your confidence. You have a whole bunch of people who have already figured out, the robotic scan. Do I trust them? Do I not? And what it means is when you throw deals over your shoulder, because they're cracking deals, your investors will buy them within 30 to 60 seconds, as in reserve them before the conveyancing gets done, right? So you're not worrying about, is my group committed? You're not doing this on a sale return basis. And that's why I sold so many deals within 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, so that's nice for you and well done. Now, what about your investors? There are 5 most stressful things in life, and one of them is buying houses. There is an official illness. I've seen it because I've done hundreds and hundreds of deals. It's called IW, investor wobble. And whether it's the person's first investment house or whether they're a major multimillionaire, because I've worked with both types of people, they all get IW, investor wobble. So what you guys need to do is put in what I call a pay envelope in advance so that your investors do that scan. If I can use Jack as an example again, hang on, Jack's trying to sell me a deal. Oh my goodness, do I trust Jack and do I want to buy this deal? Super confusing. If Jack has already charged me money to join his group, I've already figured out, do I trust Jack? So the only question I now have is, which of Jack's deals am I going to buy? So actually it reduces down the stress you are giving to your investors in asking them to buy an investment property. Even though they want to get it, they have that official disease, IW, investor wobble. Every single investor who ever bought a deal from us had that. You could see it. You just got to hold their hand, okay? So it's really good for your investors. It makes the whole experience a lot easier for them too. Let's briefly talk about the cash you can do, and then I want to come on to flipping. I hope you're taking a load of notes, people. I'm just underplaying this, okay? If you sold a purchase price of 200 grand, you'd be earning a 10 grand fee. This was my run rate, people. Can you see why, if you don't have a lot of money in property, getting in as a deal packager can be extremely profitable, extremely profitable. But I don't want you just like blinging that out on a yacht, okay? Because I will come up and I'll tell you off. I want you taking maybe 4 houses a year from your own deal packaging company. I mean, I'm underplaying it. I want you buying a lot more, but I'm just being kind here. And over 5 years, you'll end up buying 20 houses. If you do that out of your revenue, you only need a 25% deposit. So it's 50 grand a house, 200 grand. That leaves you 280 grand for tax, for lifestyle, for fun, for a bit of the yacht, and for renovations. And over 5 years, you'll have built yourself 20 houses, way over £4 million property portfolio, and obviously a 10% yield, so 400 grand rent income. Job done, isn't it? Nice. So that's deal packaging. And very briefly, I'm going to show you some deals just so that you can see the reality. Hedwick Street, we bought 180, cracking 35 grand renovations. So about 10 weeks renovation, maybe 11 weeks, sold for 256, 750. So it's a proper deal. The investor's really happy. I got paid 9 grand. Gatton Road, really one of my favorites because of the person involved. There were a couple, they're so good. Bought for 220, 38 grand renovation. They sold 312, 101, very interesting price. So again, a proper deal for the investor. I got paid 11 grand within weeks. And then this is a tip I give you guys, Church Road. Small time investors run out of money all the time. And when people are selling small developments, what I mean by that is a house turned into 4 flats or 6 flats, extended, cut, what you may or may not be aware of is when they've got bank funding and they sell the first property, they're not going to get any cash in at all because the bank takes it all. The bank's like, I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that. Oh, and I'll have that. And then they only get paid at the end. So they might as well sell the whole thing wholesale because A, they get their money faster, so it costs them less in interest, and B, they're probably already extended onto the next project. So I used to do this all the time as a deal packager, like buy a house turned into 4 or 6 flats. This one was 4, and then put 1, 2, 3, 4 investors, each buying 1, 2, 3, 4 houses, split title. I got paid 13.5 grand on a Friday. Look at that. More than the UK average salary for 3 deals. And we were doing between 48 and 53 a year. So, and that was with no money at all when I started. I was head of household with young children. That is life changing, not just for the cash, but for you reinvesting it into your own property assets. So, this is an entry point to property that's really quite easy to get into. Third subject, see? I'm packing it in and I want you guys taking a load of notes, please. And I'll just be very respectful of Jack's time. What is the standard markup on a flip? It's 20%, just in case you didn't know. So let's look at what you can earn when you are flipping property. And again, I'll take a very average Bristol price point for you guys, okay, which is selling at 300 grand. Now, what that means, if I need to be getting 20% markup, I need to have bought it, renovated it, and have all my fees costing me total 250. 250 times 1.2, which is 20% markup, gives me a 300 grand selling price, and I make 50 grand profit. Is that quite nice? Like literally one. So now I want you to look at the visualization of what you can earn, but I also want you to do a very, very quick exercise because I want you working today. Just because it's a Saturday doesn't mean to say you ain't, all of us when we started were working weekends, evenings, mornings around our day jobs. On year one, how many projects do you want to do and how much money do you want to earn? Taking my average 20% markup, 300 grand selling price. So write down a column with year one and write down projects and cash. And this is how much you would earn if depending on how many you did. And then I want you to write down a second column on year 5, how many are you going to do? And the reason I want you to do that is I want you to basically start doing your business plan. Okay. So do that really quickly for me. And then below that, I want you to have 3 headlines, which you'll need to do in your own time, which is time, money, and skills. I'm going to repeat that because I'm just going to whiz through, see you guys writing. Good. I can see some writing going on. Show me your videos so I can see you. I want to see you all writing. So I want you to write down year 1 and year 5, how many projects and how much cash are you going to earn? And then below that, 3 headlines: time, money, and skills. Because what we're doing is we're starting you to write a business plan and you're going to accelerate your growth. And it will occur to you quite naturally, I'll need more time. So who do I bring into my business? I need more money. So how do I raise that finance? I need more skills. So where do I develop those skills? Because that is the fundamental 3 sets of resources for you guys. And you can do that exercise on a packaging business, a buy-to-let business, a flipping business, any business, okay? So now I'm getting you to do business planning. I hope you're working hard. Let's talk about flipping briefly. I've bought a lot of houses and I've kept a lot of houses, and almost all the houses I bought in the recession, 2009. And guys, you are looking at an amazing opportunity. So do not approach the next 2 years with fear. Approach it like a kid wearing welly boots about to jump into the puddles. Woohoo! You have got such a brilliant time ahead of you as investors. Okay. I think only 3 of my houses have not doubled in value in just about a decade. Isn't that mad? And some of them have tripled in value. Rising, flat, downward markets. Okay. So think about this. You can flip in any marketplace, and I have done. I bought in the recession when all the newspapers were saying that I was absolutely mad. All my friends were worrying about me. Property was like a complete dead duck, and everybody was saying it was a disaster. No, I was making 20% markup all day long. Property is a function of time and price. So in a rising market, you're going to sell first weekend. Yeah. So in a rising market, I price my property £250 cheaper than the bloke or the lady next door, but my visuals are much nicer. So this is a rising market property. Everything in this image is quite cheap as chips. In a dropping market, you're going to wait a lot longer for a price. So counterintuitively, all of my properties are priced higher, but my posing kit, instead of a posing kit for a whole house costing like £3,000, my posing kit is double the value. But all I'm leaving is white walls, beige carpet, but I demonstrate a much more expensive looking house to justify the price. So it's the positioning, and I'm going to send you guys a document straight after my talk, which is all about the 7 Ps. You've got to think about, and I hope you're taking a ton of notes, who your customer is. Do not be telling me your customer is your first time buyer. I'm going to be blunt because I'm quite a straight speaker. You're only telling me that because a first time buyer property is the cheapest property for you to buy as an investor, right? Change your mindset. You can go find joint venture. You know, Jack and I have already digitally agreed to JV, haven't we, today? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go find, yes, we're in it. You can go find JVs. Tell me who is the best customer for you and figure out your customer segment. And I'm going to tell you now, it's somebody age 55 who's downsizing, who's bought 4 or 5 houses in their life and has got cash and wants it done because they're fed up with the wallpaper under their fingernails. Yeah. So do not be telling me it's a first time buyer who's not got a clue how to buy a house, doesn't have the money, may have kids, may have elderly parents. You know, understand your customer segment. Remember the 7 Ps, and I'm going to send you that afterwards, which is all about marketing. So let's see if I can remember them. Price. So remember, I £250 cheaper than the one next door, but then I get them fighting for it. So I sell for more. Place. I'm selling through the internet. Positioning. I do cheap furniture in a rising market, expensive furniture in a dropping market. Product. Is it a bungalow? Is it a flat? Is it a 3-bed family home? Packaging. That's again your posing kit. People, who's selling it. I don't get estate agents to sell it. I sell it on I Am the Agent for 99 quid because I'm in charge of talking directly to my vendor and something else. I'm going to send you that and you can tell me the one I missed. Oh, there you go. One of these. Promotion. How do you promote it? Well, don't forget old school newspapers, okay? As well as digital, because, you know, if somebody's mum wants them to live next door to her, somebody's mum in their 70s is going to be buying the local paper, whereas the daughter might be buying, she might be going online. And don't forget who's the decision maker as in a buy to let. Now, these days we're quite inclusive, aren't we? The world is very welcoming. So, you know, it doesn't matter to me who you love or whether you live alone. But in a typical heterosexual couple, do not be telling me that you, the husband, makes the choice to buy that house. Because if you are, you're like 1 in a million. The decision maker, almost always, if you're honest about it, is the lady of the house. So tell me now, gentlemen, why you are selling white walls, no curtains, no furniture, no retailing, no happiness, maybe even no lampshades. What are you doing? We ladies, we like things looking beautiful. So what am I showing here in these 3 cups? Because this is actually very subtle. I'm showing friendship. Okay, you got to go with me on this. 3, it's a crowd. I'm showing friendship. I never put mugs out in 2s. I put them out in 3s or 5s. I'm showing friendship. What am I doing here? My estate agents told me what I was really doing. I thought I was selling breakfast in bed, and they're like, honey, you're selling sex. Woo! Well, we know that sex sells. So I have the sex train at every single house I ever flip. What are we selling? We're selling sex. What are we selling here? We're selling a bit, and I have to admit to you, this used to be my old house. So I didn't buy it for status, I promise you, but we are selling kind of a loft apartment status, aren't we? You know, it's a Maltings house converted, that cool loft living vibe. We're selling self-image or maybe status to your friends, whatever it is. What are we selling here? We're selling, honey, come home. It's warm. You'll be comforted. So think about how you're retailing your property. And oh, this is the posing kit I use in a dropping market. You may or may not recognize some of these design specs, but those are original 1950s Urkel tables. It's an original 1940s chair, and that's a very nicely designed a sofa. If you compare that to my cheapest chips ones, you can see the difference. So here we're selling design. So the question you have to ask yourself when you are flipping property is, what is your big promise to the buyer? What are you actually selling? You want, in marketing, they talk about features and benefits. And as a developer, it's so cliched and normal to think you're selling a house. You're not. You're selling somebody's home. And what does that home mean to them? And therefore, what can we do to display that home to them to show them that it fits their meaning? So guys, this is the last slide. What are we selling here? We're selling romance. You see? So none of this was about, well, the boiler is A-rated and I've got an EPC and I've got a gas certificate. And the walls are quite a nice color. It's all about emotion. So I hope your hands are hurting. I'm going to send you guys my file now for the 7 Ps so that you can read more about marketing and the 7 Ps. And I'm going to tell you now, I did not write the 7 Ps. I took it word for word, which is why I credit the book. I took it word for word from another book because he wrote it beautifully. And then let me give you some contact information for you guys. I got some free masterclasses in November. Now the chat's going to go a bit wild, so you might want to grab these down pretty quickly. And then I've also got free masterclasses for December, and we're doing new ones. So again, you probably want to open these up really quickly. And maybe, Jack, you guys would be kind enough to share them later on as well.
We'll certainly be doing that. Susannah, that was amazing.
Good.
One thing that it was definitely useful. One thing I believe in is keep polishing your skills. And over a period of time, another thing that I learned in life is conscious focus on improving your skills. And either these are hard skills or soft skills or personal development skills or professional development skills. If you keep polishing your skills over a period of time, what tends to happen is something that felt slightly harder at the start, or maybe really hard at the start, starts to feel a lot more easier. And maybe you could only do 1 deal in a year. And over a period of time, now maybe next year you can do 2 or 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. It feels a lot more easier, but it's a conscious focus on improving your personal and professional skills to be able to get to that point. And I think that's where I see you as someone who's just really polished her skills and is now able to help others polish their skills when it comes to property sourcing business. So thank you, Susannah, for sharing that. You're absolutely amazing. It's a pleasure to have you here. Guys, I would heavily recommend you to go and attend her webinar. I have attended one of them, and she's, again, I've been following her for a long period of time. We actually did dance in one of the investor shows.
I want to do that again.
So she's absolutely amazing. I'd heavily recommend you to attend one of her webinars and see what if she can help you with property sourcing business of yours. And with this COVID situation, I believe it's a great time for people to improve their skills. Like I said, either it's professional skills or personal skills. I think which both of them, which Susannah is brilliant at. So yeah, again, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Susannah.
Have a brilliant day. You've got an absolute cracking lineup. Hi, Paul. Nice to see you. And have an absolute fabulous day, guys. I want to see reams of notes, and then you need to go back and review again. Okay, guys? See you guys soon. Have fun.
Thank you, Susannah. It's been an amazing journey with me. I mean, we have invited some really amazing speakers today, and now we have with us Jasim. Do we have Paul here?
Hey, Jack.
Yes, he's here. Yes, thank you. So please help me welcome Paul Davis from Nimbus Maps. He is an amazing person. I've been taking Nimbus trainings behind the scene, and he's absolutely amazing. What Nimbus can do for you is help you find flip deals, land deals, development deals, conversion deals through their software. And it is pretty easy for as long as you start to learn how it actually works. And Paul is going to share about how Nimbus Maps can potentially help you find these deals. So Paul, welcome again. Pleasure to have you here.
I second what Jack says.
Sorry?
I totally second what Jack just said in terms of finding deals using Nimbus and unliving them using Nimbus.
Yeah, we've been doing them behind the scene. Yes. So thank you, Paul, for being with us. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So let me just quickly share my screen for you today. So I suppose first thing, let's give our hands a little bit of a break. I sort of see everybody kind of scribbling notes down in Susannah's fantastic talk. So let's just kind of give you a little bit of a break for a minute. And I suppose, at least for the first kind of 5 or 10 minutes, I suppose, as I was sitting thinking about today, what's kind of became very obvious is my inbox is full of Black Friday offers, and kind of, I suppose this year being slightly strange as a year, kind of that sort of Black Friday feeling now is almost kind of taking me and looking forward towards Christmas. And not quite sure what Christmas holds this year, obviously with lockdown and all that kind of funny stuff that's going on, and kind of can't we meet up, and are the families coming or not, and this sort of stuff. But the thing that kind of with Christmas for me sort of brings is that kind of pain of the family quiz. And it's all kind of sitting around on Christmas Day with full stomachs full of turkey, ready for our snooze. And in my case, I've got a 2-year-old daughter, so my snooze is going to wait a few years, unfortunately. But my favorite part of those quizzes is the name the person quiz. So with that in mind, here's my version of that. So the big question, and if you can all open the chat up for me, is who is this? Answers in the chat when you're ready. Does anybody know who this is? Obviously, with their face mask on, showing us, there we go. Oh, look at, here we go. Here we go. This, I feel like I got this too easy, actually. Well, this man is obviously one of the most successful people in the world. He's as everybody seems to know, it is Elon Musk, obviously, with his face mask on. He's the CEO and founder of Tesla, SpaceX. He was PayPal, and all this kind of great stuff. So kind of huge number of business interests. And of course, at his heart, he's a physicist. And what he says, and kind of the reason why I've put him as my choice today for the quiz, is that he says that if you can reason the problem up from first principles, then that's the best way to come to a really great answer. But what he says is it's really hard and it takes a lot of effort. So as I kind of sat there preparing for today, I thought, well, actually, if I could take this idea of building a multi-million-pound property portfolio from kind of a modest start, and I could reason that up from first principles, then that must be a good thing and a really helpful way of spending our Saturday afternoon. And if I could reason that to a point where I can help you find great opportunities, then I thought that must be helpful too. So why do I think I can kind of do the same thing that this kind of great person can do? And I'm not the same as him. I'm not kind of anything sort of suggesting anything like as kind of bright as he is. But in my case, why do I think? Well, I studied here. This was, I did engineering at this place, and there's quite a heavy overlap between engineering and physics. And so reasoning up from first principles was something that I was kind of taught to do. And if I'm honest, kind of the reason why I did this, well, there was kind of the main reason, but there's actually kind of two reasons. One reason was I wanted to sit there with that view and have a glass of beer. But the main reason, and more importantly, the reason for doing this was that actually was probably a similar reason for anybody else born in the kind of 70s and 80s. And of course, that reason was, of course, this. Yes, it was Top Gun. And the appeal of engineering was, of course, that picture on the right-hand side, which is this glorious fighter jet with this kind of flying into the sunset. But of course, there's a certain element of appeal to that center picture, obviously, as well. And what came next, which was kind of slightly frustrating for me, was actually this. So this was the kind of the key thing. So the big day in my career at university was this one day that picture came up on the overhead projector, and I was sitting there going, wow, this is going to be amazing. This is my moment. This is the thing I've been waiting for. And the next thing that came up was F equals MA. And that was really bloody boring. And it moved into this, which was even worse. It's like, dear God, I've been sitting there waiting for this as my moment of glory, looking at this fantastic picture of an aircraft. And actually, maybe this just proved I'm not Tom Cruise, I don't know. But in effect, there were pages and pages of algebra that came off the back of that. And it was all kind of very dull. And I guess what you guys are all thinking now is, what on earth does this have to do with property, Paul? And dear Lord, this talk's going to be dull if we're not careful. So let me move on. Well, let me kind of explain kind of why that question is helpful. If I can sweat down today's topic into something small, digestible and manageable without all this junk of algebra, then I feel that I can then give that to you to take away. You can get it and you can go off and you can absolutely smash it. So let's start with those first principles. The way that I believe you can build that portfolio, the way you can build that multi-million-pound portfolio is by simply going through this 3-stage process. And that stage process is very simple. You buy or broker buildings. So you start off with, in that sort of top right-hand corner over here, where we buy a site, or indeed, if we haven't got the money to do that, we broker it. And perhaps we start off at a stage before that where we're doing rent to build cash flow. That allows us to save for a deposit. Then we buy the site we're thinking of, and crucially, we add value to it. If we add value, then we have a choice at the end of that. We could sell it and just bring that cash back in. But actually, what we can usually do is we can re-gear at that point. So we can borrow more money off the bank, which then releases the equity. So in effect, the value you've added becomes your equity in a deal. You get your money back that you've put in at the start because you've added value, and that's kind of changed the metrics and changed the economics behind the deal, if you like. You get your money back out and you go again. And in essence, then the rent that you're generating off the back of the building that you've bought then repays that loan for you over the course of 20, 30 years. Thanks very much. So it's really simple, right? Really simple. So what are the ways that you can find sites and add value, and kind of in a nutshell, kind of what is that? Well, I suppose the first question is, well, who the hell am I to try and answer that question for you? And how can I kind of propose the answer to this? Well, the reason I feel that I can explain this to you is that my journey after that moment of kind of talking about university and first principles and misery of me realizing I'm not actually Tom Cruise, it falls into three parts. And the first part of that was us being investor developers. And as with investment and development, kind of it starts with a little glitz and glamour. And in my case, glitz and glamour looked just like this. This was my first ever development. It was a 5-acre site. And this was a site here, and it was this sort of site here. In effect, it was 5 acres in Birmingham on the Warwick Road, going in sort of through Tyseley. Incidentally, kind of very close to where Peaky Blinders was set. If anybody's watching that, I've been watching that vividly. An amazing box set. In essence, what this was a sort of very heavily constrained site, which we didn't realize. We'd owned it for 20 years in that investment piece before we became developers. And we got this really, really wrong. This was a real kind of nightmare of a site. And what you can see here is that sort of this 5 acres, kind of 3 acres of it are all in flood zone 3, which meant that as we'd knocked all of our buildings down, or a fair chunk of them, we suddenly found out the site was in flood zone 3. And this is kind of the world before kind of this sort of thing, which is Nimbus maps. And we had a number of other constraints on it as well that we didn't know about. So we had a sort of a river running through the middle of it, which we didn't understand what that meant. We had a highway improvement line across the front. We had an intermediate pressure gas main running down the side of the site, which served half of Birmingham. And we'd got 3 sewers that crossed it, one down here, one over here, and one through the middle here. So we had a whole bunch of problems with this particular building, which kind of showed us how not to do development, if you like. This was it being built. We sort of managed to get this scheme out of the ground. This is a 40,000 square foot building at the front there. And that building was raised out of the ground by an entire meter to get it out of the floodplain that we had no idea of when we knocked it down. This is it now gracefully maturing on the Warwick Road. There's 70,000 feet in total, 3 building scheme, and that's the biggest one. That building at the front there is an acre in size on the inside of it. So it's the size of a football pitch inside, frankly. The next sort of step on that journey was actually this. So we owned this little parade of shops over here, and we got interested in it from Sainsbury's. And the interesting thing about that was that we couldn't fit them on our site. So we started writing to owners nearby. And this was kind of our first part of almost kind of letter campaigning. Kind of a lot of our customers here at Nimbus Maps do a lot of letter campaigning and really use that to drive the volume into their business, to find those off-market gems, those off-market sites that you can really unlock. In our case, we couldn't fit this sort of Sainsbury's requirements on our site. So we then looked over the road and sort of wrote to the pub company over the road for this site here. And actually what we did with this was this. And that set us into our second part of the journey, which was then all around development consultancy. And kind of I'll come on to why it's really kind of relevant in a second. So we did a lot of this. This was up in Nottingham, the Masons Arms in Hutland in Nottingham, where we did this to it. This was something very similar to this, which was a sort of an old school shops with uppers, but actually it was a pub with uppers rather than shops with uppers. But back in the day, we had permitted development rights to change from pub to shop. So what we did with this was this, and this took some really kind of big values that sort of drove those values up. And really the key nuts and bolts around this was really the Zone A rents that at the front there, kind of the value of the retail space on the ground floor. We did this sort of stuff. Did about 300 of these, sorry, 250 of these, I suspect, which is taking a pub and reorientating the car park and putting housing on it. And indeed, some stuff like this. This is the Lonsdale in Thurmston in Leicester, where we knocked that pub down and did this to it. So where am I going with this, and why am I showing you this? Well, the reason that this was interesting is that we did all of this through technology, and our big challenge as we went through this process was looking and saying, well, actually, how do we create a strategy off the back of a number of sites going up? So we started with a single site, and sort of as our clients became more and more happy with what we were doing, we saw one site become 100 sites, become 1,000 sites, become 10,000 sites. And we then had to work out, well, how do we find opportunities within those pub estates? How do we look at what these buildings could be at the end? And how do we know if those are higher value or not than what we've actually got? And the answer is that we use technology to do that. And the impact of that was this. This is an extract from the Estates Gazette from last year. And what you can see on the right-hand side over here is a little graph. And that graph shows you how the number of planning applications, in our case on pubs, that was kind of the thing we were focusing on, how those number of applications went up off the back of the work that we were doing. And we kind of, so we're not all of this, but we're sort of a good chunk of that. There's about 350 of these over that period in effect. And so you can see the way in which that kind of affected that kind of marketplace, if you like. And what it ended up in actually was this, which was a sale of one of our biggest customers, Punch Taverns, to Patron and Heineken for a huge deal. But in essence, where that came from was us finding £100 million of value by using these strategies within their portfolio. So what are those first principles? And how can we then build on those? Kind of what did we learn through that journey of supporting those pub companies? And how can we sweat those down into first principles that really kind of explain what each one of those 350 schemes actually had in common? Well, for me, it's these four things. And the four things for me are, number one, you can take a site and you can intensify the use. So you can take a house and you can put more houses on it. You can take a house, you can knock it down and build flats on it. So number one is taking more of what you've got and doing more with it. Number two is changing of a use. So changing a use from one thing like a shop, like the storage space above a shop, and converting that into a higher value use, which is maybe residential. Class G, PD rights, shops above flats, flats above shops. Or indeed refurbishing a building, which is a lot of the stuff that Susannah's been talking about, and saying, well, actually, how do I find a building that is currently at a lower value than what it could be if I gave it a lick of paint and I sold the dream to the customer that I've got, and I show that the 3 coffee cups, and I show that feeling of friendship, if you like, and sell all that dream. So I can intensify use, I can change use, or I can refurbish it to drive the value up from something lower value to something higher value. The next two then are where do I do it? If I do it in sustainable locations, and in Susannah's case, she's saying a marketplace of 250,000 people. Well, that 250,000 people is if you're going to be flipping just a house buy and flip kind of thing. If you're thinking about development, it's a sustainable location that's the important thing. So you can have a much smaller town or village. And that town or village really can have, as long as it's a population of about 700 people, then typically you'll get support for additional dwellings in those locations. So sustainable locations mean that it's okay for us to put new housing into a location because it's got the facilities in that place that support the people that are there living there, and then so they've got a shop, they've got a pub, they've got a bus route into the local town, and they've got enough people there and enough of a support network for that to actually work. And on top of that, then, if you build in line with the character of what you've got in those locations, then typically you'll get support from the council. So if you get a blend of those four things, or in fact, any two of the first ones where we're driving either more units into a site, we're changing the use or refurbishing to drive values up, and we do it in these areas, then all of the schemes that I've done share that same principle. The stuff that we've struggled with and stuff we've ended up appealing and lost, and those kind of difficult things that we've done and got wrong, contravene one of those four things. So where does that leave us? So what does that mean? How do we kind of go from here? Where does that kind of leave us? Well, for me, sweating those kind of four things down into 4 ways to find opportunities that you can drive value are these. These are kind of the 8 ways to find land that we have with our elite platform. And so in essence, some of those, I'm not going to take through all of these. I'm just going to kind of run you through 2 or 3 that are kind of perhaps helpful. But in essence, if I want to drive value into a site by putting more units onto it with the existing use, I want to go and find a house with a back garden or a side garden or a corner plot or something like that, where I can put a couple of houses on that return frontage on the corner plot. Then all I'm doing is trying to find a low density site. And the very simple way of doing that is finding those sustainable locations and looking at the area and saying, well, where do I see breaks in the building line? Off the back of that, I can then find there's a house, gap, house. I put a house into that gap, I drive value into that, I re-gear, happy days, off we go. Equally, there's some quite simple stuff that you can do with existing permitted development rights. So actually finding office buildings that convert to residential, provided those values are different. As I say, it's about refurbishing or changing of use to drive a value into a site where the use that you're creating, which typically is residential, is higher than the value of what you're buying. Or quite simply, if I want to, at the very start of my journey, I may just go and find some stuff that's got planning and build it myself. I'm going to go and buy it with that planning consent and just build it. Or I might broker it. And actually, where do I find a bunch of developers that I'm going to buy this stuff off? Well, they're the ones that have already submitted a planning application historically and bought stuff nearby, and therefore I can broker sites into them if I can go and find them. So within Elite, there's a whole bunch of ways in which you can find all this stuff. But obviously, the world's changed this year. So in March, we all got locked down. I suppose in January, some virus kicked off in some part of the world, in some city that I've never heard of, frankly, and suddenly that migrated across the world, and we've all suddenly hit this kind of strange world that we're in at the moment. And of course, what that prompted here in the UK was this. And this was this kind of whole change to the planning system that hit and was announced in August, and suddenly the world changed in September. The 1st September, it all kind of changed. So when we hit that point here at Nimbus, we thought, well, actually, what can we do? How can we help? How can we again sweat this down into something simple and manageable that we can understand? And then how can we use what we learned going through that sort of second stage of our journey as development consultants, applying technology to look at big portfolios and saying, well, where can we unlock value out of those? And how can we use these new rules, this new kind of, we're playing a game of chess here, and someone's just changed all the rules for us. So what does that mean? Where does that create opportunity for us? Well, what it did was it created this thing that we call strategies. And that's these. I'm going to run through these in a little bit of detail, because I've still got another sort of 12 minutes of my time still to go. So actually, these are the 6 things that we believe you can do right here, right now, to make the most of the new build message that came out of the government. And they're really in 2 halves. And they all kind of align with what I've said at the start, with those kind of 4 key things around driving intensifying uses, converting buildings from one use to another, and then looking at sustainable locations, and then building in line with the character of what's around them. And so these are those. So what we've got is we have at the bottom here, the sort of the 4, 5, and 6, which is looking at existing permitted development, and there's a kind of a clock ticking on that. So the announcement from August, those existing PD rights that we kind of became so used to at the early part of this year and before, the Class Gs, the Class Ms, the Class Os, all that kind of good stuff, those all run out at the 31st of July next year. But there's a whole raft of new stuff that's come out, which is Class ZA, Class A, all this kind of good stuff that we've probably heard about in the news. And the first 3 then aim at those. So I'm going to start off with the first 3, and we're going to just run through what they are. And the whole point of these is that I can buy a site with these things in place. If I search in the right location, I can drive the value up. I can then build those schemes out with the additional value that's there, and I could probably do that off the back of bank funding rather than put my own money into that. I can then re-gear those buildings at the end of that, having driven that value into them. And then the bank's debt repays everything, the new amount, because the values are higher now, the new level of debt that I can put in place because of these higher values and this new income level that's coming out of these sites. I can then re-gear those. I can sit back off the back of that. The rent will then repay the debt, and I can take my cash out as part of that re-gear, and I can reinvest that into the next one. I can then build that multi-million-pound property portfolio. So the first one is commercial to residential. This is looking at Class ZA. So the new Class ZA PD rights that have been announced are looking at industrial buildings, office buildings, and research and development buildings, where you can knock them down and rebuild them as flats with 2 stories on top of them. So typically in lots of parts of the country, residential values are higher than those office building, the office values and the shed values. And we can knock them down and put 2 stories on top. There's a few things that you can't do. So you can't do them to buildings that are in SSSI or listed buildings. So anything that's kind of protected, you can't do it to. You can only do it up to a building of 1,000 square meters of ground floor size, so ground floor building footprint. You can't go any bigger than that. And they must not be too tall. So when you put your additional 2 stories on top, they can't be taller than 18 meters. Now, what we've done here at Nimbus is say, well, actually, how can we refine all of those properties across the UK to those buildings then where this is likely to apply? So what we've done is we've looked again in those sustainable towns, cities and villages where the building height is less than 18 meters, where the use is B1, either the office space, the industrial space, and the research and development space, where the building footprint is the right size, where the buildings aren't listed, they're not in national parks, they're not in area of outstanding natural beauty, they're not site special scientific interest. So then we've got a genuine chance of being able to get that PD right to apply. And of course, if I get that PD right to apply on the right building, then the value of the building will go up when that planning ticket comes through. So again, at that point, I could regear, I could bring in a joint venture partner who's going to pay for it all. There's a number of things I could do at that point. I could just flip it and sell it and take my 20% profit margin that Susannah was talking about. So that's strategy number 1, is kind of commercial, new build, knock it down, put 2 stories on top. Thanks very much. The second one, this is one of the ones that I'm kind of most excited about, is airspace above flats. So you can take a block of flats that's built between 1948 and 2018, provided it's not protected. So provided it's not in it's not listed, it's not on national park and this sort of stuff. You can then put 2 stories of flats on top of them if they're the right height. So this is the new Class A. It's the new Class AA and Class AB, which is kind of AA and AB are all about kind of whether the ground floors ground floors commercial space or whether it's residential space. But fundamentally, the principles of what's behind it are the same. We're taking a building that's kind of 3 stories and we're putting a couple of stories on top of it, frankly. And what I think is most interesting about this is that the people that own these kind of buildings, so some of them, so when you think about this asset class, you think about, well, blocks of flats there, residents associations and this kind of stuff, all difficult to unlock. With Nimbus, we've removed that out of the equation, which means you've got investors that own these things. The lot sizes that you pay to go and buy a ground rent like this is very small. And the people that own those things don't understand what these new rights are all about. And so we've got a low entry point in terms of the price we've got to pay for it. We've got an uneducated vendor that owns this thing and that may not want it. And actually, their world has turned upside down off the back of this new virus that's hit the world and turned us all upside down, quite frankly. So in my head, it's really interesting. So what we've done is, again, we've looked in the right places. We've looked at places where the values are high enough to be able to pay for that additional build cost to take the roof off and go high. We've looked at buildings that are built in the right time. We've got a building height that's the right height. That means it should apply. We've looked at where the ownership of those buildings is in a structure whereby you can unlock the upper parts, where the owner of the freehold still has control of the fabric of the building, so you can take the roof off and go above it. And obviously, we've removed those buildings where it's not going to apply, where it's listed in to national parks and all that kind of good stuff. So that's strategy number 2. Strategy number 3 then is a simpler one, which is around individual buildings, and typically it's Class AA, Class AC, and Class AD, where you can take an existing house and you can put, if it's 2 stories, you can put 2 stories on top of it, or if it's a bungalow, you can put 1 story on top of the bungalow. This is the new Class AA, Class AC, and Class AD, depending on whether it's detached or whether it's a terrace or and what's kind of interesting is that when you put that extra story on top, you have a choice of whether you create that as a flat or whether you create that as a bigger house, if you like. So at Nimbus, we've done a similar thing where we've gone off and we've found bungalow sites across the M25. Actually, we're now live outside the M25 too, where we've then looked at the neighbouring buildings. So, well, if I put that extra story on top of it, then is that going to look right? And in essence, what we're looking for is this sort of thing here, where you've got this bungalow here with a much taller building to the side of it, where you could then infill that space. again, it's in areas where it's sustainable. It's in areas where you're, in effect, bringing that building back in line with the character of what's around it. And therefore, it's not going to be odd. It's not going to be difficult to sell. It's not going to be a problem site. You're not building a white elephant that you can't get rid of. Again, you can't do that to listed buildings. You can't put new dwellings in flood zones and this sort of stuff. So we've removed all of that out of the search. And then onto the stuff that's still live now. So what you can also do on top of this, so this is the existing community development rights. These run until the 31st of July next year, and there's still time to find this stuff and acquire it and get your PD rights off the back of it. This is the Class G and Class M. So Class G says that you can take a shop. If there's empty space or there's space above it, whether that's part of the shop or otherwise, you can convert that into 2 flats. And often the first floor parts of a shop, typically people don't trade very well from first floor parts. So typically there's storage, or maybe there might be a bit of office space or something like that that's above a shop. And typically that's a lower value than the residential values around it. You can do it in conservation, you can do it in listed buildings. I've done it to 3 myself. And then Class M is then saying, well, actually, could you convert the ground floor too? And perhaps that opens up things like HMOs and things like that. So here at Nimbus, what we've done is we've looked again, sustainable locations, it's all about that sustainability. It's all about when we create new residential properties in that location, will they convert? Will that then be saleable? We've then looked at where the upper parts are at a lower value than the neighboring areas, so that then we know that that conversion is going to stack up. The last 2 then are low value commercial buildings. So how else can I drive value into building? I could convert from a lower value into a higher value one. And this is then this 5th strategy, which is saying, well, what are those low value buildings that sit within residential areas that actually I could convert from one to the other? I may do more, I may knock it down and rebuild it, but actually it's allowing me to go from one to the other. So we've gone off and we found that it's typically this kind of quick fit kind of stuff where you've got this kind of residential feel in the area, and suddenly you've got this kind of building that sits out of character from that area that's around it in effect. So we've looked at whether you can convert that viably. We've looked at then if there's a residential feel to that location. Then we're showing you where we're kind of excluding stuff with greenbelt, stuff with flood zones 2 and 3, and this sort of stuff where we're then got chance of getting our additional consents. And the final one then is this the residential development plots. This is very much that intensification of use. Where do I find a house where I can take the rear garden off, or I can take the side garden off, or I can come off the return frontage and I can put more housing in the back? And that's what this does. This is the little screenshot of the sort of the visual search that we do with Nimbus. And you can kind of see in the case of this building here, you know, the scope to put something in here. We've got kind of housing down here. There's a sort of space down the front here. We've got kind of housing. And actually, why can't we put something there? Why can't we put that? This house here doesn't need to be anything like as big as what it's got there. So actually, we're recreating this sort of setup here in effect. It's very simple. We're just building in line with the character of that location. So those are the kind of top 6 strategies that I think are kind of really helpful at the moment. And actually what that's done is it's reasoned it up from those 4 key principles to say, what are those strategies we can apply, the 8 ways to find land with Elite, and these 6 new strategies, if you like, which kind of blend together all of those different, that big thick document that's the General Permitted Development Rights Order, kind of, it's just, there's so much in it. Kind of, what does that mean? Well, it means 6 things. It means these 6 things, quite frankly, around what you can do with buildings and drive value with a residential exit at the end of the day. And I'm going to give you a 30-second demonstration of Nimbus just to show you how this works in effect. So if I go off to, I will put in the chat, but I'm very conscious that I'm going to end up taking too much time here. So I'm going to jump into somewhere like Watford, just as a place that I've plucked out out of my head in effect. Now, what we can do with the Elite platforms, there's a whole bunch of things that I can do. But first off, let's just look at commercial conversion. Let's look at shops with uppers that we can convert from one to the other. First thing I want to make sure I've got some residential values in the area. So I'm going to look in the market section here, and I can just toggle those on, and I can see I've got a £400 a foot residential value in this area here. And if I just click on this, I'll sort of see what it is around there. So £427 a foot, kind of really quickly understand, roughly speaking, what residential are worth in that area. The bit that I'm kind of most interested in showing at the moment is these strategies. So we've got these 6 different types of strategies, but let's just go shops with uppers for the moment, because that's the one that's kind of expiring at the moment. That's the one we're going to lose in sort of 7 or 8 months' time. So what this has done, when I click that button there, is it's showing me along this high street here. So this is the kind of a high street in Watford, and I can do this kind of wherever you want me to. But in essence, what it's showing is that when I kind of zoom into these properties here, it's giving me kind of a heat map. And that heat map is telling me what the predicted profit level would be if I took the upper parts of those buildings and converted them from the existing use into residential in that location. I've got permitted development rights to just allow me to go and put 2 flats above that. So I've got the permitted development of the planning right to go and do that if I want to. I can then click on that property, and it says to me here that this property here has 2,400 square feet at first floor. They've got a rough estimate of what the rent is of about £4. And therefore Nimbus believes that you could buy those upper parts on their own. You probably buy the ground floor as part of it as well, but you could buy the upper parts and convert them. So what's the cost to buy it and then convert it into the residential? So you know what it's going to cost you to get to the end residential use. And Nimbus thinks that'll be 163 quid. So for every square feet, it costs you 163, you've got to pay 60 to buy it and 100 to convert it. And it'll be worth £450 a foot when it's built. So what it's saying is there's £300 a square foot, and I've got 2,500 square feet just under of space there, where I can drive £300 a foot of profit out of that building. And of course that adds up to this kind of number here, frankly, that sort of £700,000 in effect, 2,400 square feet at just under £300 a foot difference in value. What's kind of also interesting with that is that we also have things like the availability within Nimbus. So I can see here that actually this building here has part of it on the market with Green and Partners. So actually I can very quickly drive and find the opportunity and then get in touch with the owner of that through the agent, because actually that building is right here, right now on the market. Thanks very much. So hopefully that's kind of brought some of that to life. The same's true then with the development plot. So if I'm just going to remove that on market stuff again and just go back into the strategies.
Paul, sorry, you're running out of time.
Yeah, cool. 3 minutes, perfect. If I click on that one, what this now shows me is where do I see low density properties that then are lower density than the neighbours, or on a corner or something like that, where I can then drive and intensify that use in essence. So very quick ways to go and find those opportunities. What we then do is we then write to the owners, and there's kind of tools around helping us send letters and track where all that is in effect. So that's my demonstration complete. I'm going to jump back into here. If anybody would like to see this in with a bit more time and wants to see us run you through this, then if I'm okay, Jack and Jasim, I'll pop some links into the chat if that's okay. Fabulous, cool. Let me just do that. So what we have here. Let me just jump back there. Sorry, there we go. Just juggling my screens here. So in essence, what we have is, if you like to see the platform in perhaps a little bit more time than the sort of 3 minutes that I've shown you, then we can run you through a demo with the team up here at Nimbus, and I'll pop a link into the chat for you all for that. So the demo one will give you a link where you can go and book a call with one of our team. We'll kind of run you through those kind of a number of ways to find land, and also show you those strategies, kind of perhaps the ones that perhaps you might be interested in. You can have a 14-day free trial on us of the Elite platform too. So the second link will give you a chance to do that. Obviously, Black Friday is next week. There is a discount that you can get off the back of partly being part of the Penn network, but also as part of the Black Friday offer, you can get 20% off the strategies as well. So if anyone's interested in that, then you can book in your calls with us there. So apologies for overrunning slightly, but hopefully that's been helpful. Are there any questions anyone would like me to answer as part of that? Perhaps we pop into chat for any questions. Conscious I've overrun, so maybe I missed my chance for questions, but hopefully that's been helpful.
Thank you, Paul, once again. It was amazing. We use Nimbus ourselves. We heavily recommend everyone to get Nimbus for themselves, because it just gets so much more easier for you to be able to find conversion deals, development deals, where you can add value and all sorts of property deals. Thank you once again, Paul, for being with us here and doing your presentation.
Great to see you.
If you have any questions for Paul, please drop them in the chat box and Paul will be able to answer them for you. Thank you, Paul, once again.
Thanks so much.
We have an amazing speaker with us. She is a strategist. She's also into asset management. So please help me welcome Natasha Collins.
Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for having me today. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm very excited for this. I've been watching very closely to the previous speakers. It's an awesome, awesome event. Okay, I'm going to jump straight in because you need to make the most out of this time. I'm going to go through being the asset manager of your property portfolio. We're going to go through moving assets. We're going to be putting in place, I'm going to be showing you the strategy that you need to implement to grow your property portfolio. Who am I? If you have never come across me before, my name is Natasha Collins. I'm coming to you from South Carolina. I live in Charleston right now. I'm the host of NC Real Estate's Members Club. That's the place for landlords and property investors to come and build property portfolios that completely align with their goals. I have been a property investment strategist, asset manager for coming up to 12 years now. I'm a chartered surveyor. I specialize in mixed use and lease advisory. That's been my background. I run massive property portfolios. I was an asset manager for the NHS, which is where I started off. I ran their Royal Brompton portfolio. That was £500 million worth of assets. I then was the commercial asset manager for the Sloane Stanley estate. I ran that whole estate and slowly worked my way around London before setting up my own firm of surveyors, which is what NC Real Estate is. I invest in property myself, both sides of the Atlantic. Started off in the UK, have a property portfolio in Bath and London. I grew up in Bath. Now I have development projects up in New Jersey, near New York, other side of the river. We lived in New York for a couple of years, so had to experiment, and now setting up a property portfolio down here in Charleston, under offer on a lovely big lake house across the lake from where we are now. So I like to experiment in property because I think that's the fun way of doing it. I'm also a university lecturer with the University College of Estate Management. I run the postgraduate and the undergraduate property management modules. One of my key aims as well, being in the industry, is leaving the industry better than I found it. I am on a mission to make anybody that manages property regulated. That is part of what I do because I cannot see any more people die in things like Grenfell. So it's another one of my my side projects, but that's a lengthier term thing that I'm working on with industry bodies. So that's me. I do an awful lot in the property industry, but ultimately my favorite thing to talk about is asset management. That's what I do day in, day out with my clients in the members club. I make sure that they are building profitable property portfolios. That's what we do. So I'm going to go through in the next 25 to 30 minutes the traditional way of doing asset management. So where most asset management managers start. I'm going to go through new asset management strategy, so the asset management strategy that I use with my clients and why I think that's so successful. I'm going to be talking about moving assets and why you need to be buying them, and that's really building on what Paul and Susannah have already said this morning. I'll go through my 6 buckets method for acquisition, and hopefully you will come away with a really good idea of what sort of strategy you can put in place to keep building your property portfolio. So I hope that is okay. We've got a lot to cover in a short space of time. Traditional management. This is really where things start. Life cycle of a property. This would be how I would look at every single property portfolio, and I will make sure that I give you as many examples as I can throughout of how this works. So traditional property management, traditional asset management, we would always look at the life cycle of a property. We start by buying. We then look to add value if we need to develop. We'll then lease, whether that's commercial or residential. We then put in place a management strategy. And I firmly believe that management is where you make the most money, because that is looking at, okay, why is the client, or why have I bought property? Where am I looking to get it to? What does that mean? What is that period in between that I have to do to make sure that that property is really well maintained, my tenants are looked after so that they are paying rent, and I can make sure that I'm maximizing the value of this asset. That's always what we're looking to do. We do that, we review periodically. I'm a big fan of benchmarking. I benchmark everything in my property portfolio. Commercial, serviced accommodation, buy-to-lets, what's performing the best? At the moment, my buy-to-lets are performing the best. I don't actually have any commercial. We sold that on. We changed all of our serviced accommodation during COVID to buy-to-lets. It's just easier, far easier to manage one set of tenants. We'll look at changing it back over next year. I also work on net return on investment over the life cycle of a property. I know a lot of people don't do that, but as a surveyor, it's the biggest benchmark that I look at. How long would I need to hold this property for to get my money back? And at that point, I could look at selling. So what we do is we try and bring that return on investment in. So that's the adjustment phase. What do we need to do? Do we need to redevelop? Do we need to relet? Having good tenants in is so important. Good tenants that are paying rent is where you get your value from. If you get to the end of that cycle, it's time to dispose. I'll tell you, people always say to me, Natasha, why on earth would you sell property? Here's a really good example. Back in 2014, I bought a portfolio for one of my clients. It was 4 commercial, 5 residential. We bought that for £4.5 million on the King's Road in London. My objective was to double the value of that property portfolio in 2 years, which may seem wild. Now, here's the thing, didn't do anything in regards to development. It was a whole lease strategy that I implemented to double the value of that property. We put in place better tenants. I negotiated on better lease terms so that there was security of income for a longer period of time. In the upper parts, put in place better residential tenants on higher rent. I think I spent £20,000 per flat. That was it. Didn't have a very big budget for the refurb of the flat, but it just made it look really, really beautiful. Better tenants, up the rent, longer periods of time that we were getting the rent in for. 2 years' time, we sold it for 9 million. Now, you may be thinking, why, Natasha, would you have allowed your client to sell the property? Well, they went and bought up Woolwich High Street. They are making so much money off of that £9 million right now that they didn't need to hold the asset on the King's Road. And then you may be thinking, well, hold on a second, who would buy it at £9 million, knowing that over the 2-year period, it doubled in value? Well, we sold it to an American tennis player who will now keep that as part of their assets for a long, long time, because we put in place good leases, strong covenant tenants, and that is going to really create a huge income for them. So we look at disposing at the point where we have maximized the growth of the asset for our own needs, and we could use the money better elsewhere. So you don't necessarily have to dispose, but if there's an opportunity, why not? You always want to be making the most that you can out of your assets. It is a business, it's not necessarily personal. Last year, I sold a property in Putney because we were not going to get the rental income out of it, did not need that tiny amount of income. Yeah, the property may have gone up in value, but quite frankly, it wasn't really going to make enough for me. So we sold it. And I bought a development in New Jersey, which we're going to profit out at $500,000, which would be lovely when that sells in the new year. So you've always got to be looking at what are the opportunities when you put your strategy in place. So indulge me a little bit. I'm going to go through my asset management strategy. I have been teaching master's students this week. They've got their assignments due in on Monday. So I have got my whiteboard up. I am going to pin my video so that you can see, hopefully you can see this. I will turn my camera. Okay, let me go through my asset management strategy. Easier for me to talk through. And this is what I want you to be doing with yourself as well. So make sure that you're writing this out. We've always got to be starting with our goals. What do we want to achieve? Where are we now? What is the time frame that we want to be achieving at the moment? And what do we want to do? You know, we get to do so many things in property. We can look at any type of property that we want to, really, but you have to figure out what you get excited in. Then we put in place the strategy. With all of my clients, one of the big things that I do, and what you will need to do as well, is you look at, where am I today? What do I have? What do I have assets wise? What do I have money wise? What do I have property wise? Like, what do I have in my possession? And then from there, you need to be thinking, okay, well, what does that goal look like? How many properties do I actually want? I firmly believe you do not need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties to make the money that you want. I would far rather I have a handful of properties generating the income. I managed to recreate my surveying strategy, my surveying income. So what I was when I was in corporate, with 3 properties. That was that, right? I'm a property manager. I don't even like having hundreds of properties. There's no point. You have to systemize this whole thing. So you need to figure out what you want to do, where your strengths are, what you like to do, and then map the difference. And I put in place cash flow strategies. That means that we map what's coming in on a monthly basis. What does that look like? How does that, how is that going to change over the hold period of your assets? Now, you may say to me, I want to be in property for the next 5 years. I want to be in property for the next 20 years. It really doesn't matter. We've just got to map out what's going to happen during that time. So once you've put in place your strategy, you know when you're going to be buying property, when you need to get finance, what type of finance you need to get, what type of property you need to buy. You have all of those characteristics. So the price, the income that you're looking to get, the net profit that you're looking to find. You can then start looking at what I like to call moving assets. Moving assets. These are assets that will continuously grow throughout the whole period. There is so much talk about you buy at a certain price, or you get a discount on the price, you remortgage it once. You remortgage it once, you sit on it, that's boring. It doesn't bring out any other money. We need that property to grow over the life cycle of your property portfolio. And I'll talk about how you can do that, but it's vital that you put that in as part of your strategy. We look at growing what you've already got, and then we put in place a shopping list for what you need to buy next. With that, you can then put in place finance, because you've got all of your property portfolio mapped out. So we know what we're leveraging against, we know how many assets you've got, and we know what money you're bringing in when. It means that also when you're going out and you're pitching to investors, if you want investors to invest in your portfolio, you can show them exactly when you'll be paying them back, how you'll be paying them back, how you're going to be regearing your property portfolio. Absolutely vital. And then once we've got all of that in place, we manage that. We keep that growing. We keep looking at it. We keep seeing, how can we adjust this? It is absolutely vital that we keep looking at that, which is why we benchmark. What is our property portfolio doing right now, and how can we make those small tweaks? For example, if you're getting to 100% net return on investment over 10 years, how do we bring that into 9 years? How do we bring that into 8.5 years? What do we need to do? And that's where property gets exciting. That's where it gets, tactical, interesting. That's surely why we're in it. We're not just in it to sit on it. Otherwise, you would just outsource a lot. I mean, I've run property portfolios for massive investors. I told you about the Sloan Stanley estate. That's why they have a team in-house. They did not want to do it themselves, right? You make the choice. Do you want to do it yourself, or are you going to outsource it to other people? That really is up to you, depending on how much you enjoy being in the industry. Let's go back to my PowerPoint. Now that I've shown you the way that I work, let's focus on moving assets. I think it's really vital that we get this down. And please, if I could ask you to focus on something, one key takeaway is we always need to be investing in moving assets. This is my residential moving assets diagram. essentially you look for a property. You look at what you can do in the short term. So, you know, maybe it's creating a good net yield. Maybe it's a great price with potential to sell at a higher price. Side note, guys, I don't talk BMV. It's not a surveying term, so I don't go near it. I talk about, you know, what is market value? So market value is the value of an asset on the date that you've done the valuation, and how can you negotiate a better price on that so that you can add value? Then we look at, you know, location. Location for me is very, very important. Location should be one of the biggest things that you're looking at. You want to get in where there's potential for that location to grow. Maybe it's terribly maintained. So in the short term, you just do it up. And then you also need to be thinking about what can you do in the medium term? What can you do in the long term? At what point would you sell that asset? You might not sell it, but what would you do to get it to that highest value point? And so here I've put, you know, inspiration, add a garage, convert into flats, modernize. You don't have to do what your ideas are, but have ideas for how you're going to grow that property. I bought a flat in Bath this year. The flat was above another flat that I'd already bought. The reason I bought it is because at some point I'd be able to start putting that building together. That will increase the value of both of those assets through marriage value. I would keep buying in that building just to be tactical from those kind of things, right? That's not a short-term thing. It's not going to happen over the next couple of years. They both flats at the moment net really nice profits. I also want the other flat in the building, and I'd quite like the commercial units too. So it was a tactical play for long term. I just did, I think, a couple of £1,000s worth of renovation, and that was it. Put it on the market. It will now sit there until I can keep acquiring the whole of the building or maybe the neighbouring units. And I'll just wait for that to happen. But that's my long-term play. The longest term play is that the whole building gets converted into one property, which has huge amounts of value, because in Central Bath, you do not get full properties that are together at the moment. So you look at that. Here, it's you've maintained it, you've let it out, you've then done a really nice redevelopment, you've added to the property, you've let it out again, you've increased the rent. Finally, you've decided, oh, great, I can convert this into flats. I'm going to put flats on the land. And that would be 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line. Properties should be ever evolving. They should be always moving, and you need to buy that in mind, so that with that in mind, so that you keep getting that growth over the whole period. So that's residential. Let's have a look at commercial. Commercial is my favorite because you can create growth without leaving your chair. I could do this from anywhere in the world, and I do this from anywhere in the world. So commercial, how do you keep a commercial asset growing over the hold period? Well, the best way of doing it is by re-gearing the lease. With commercial, that's all you have to do to add value. What you want to do, have a stronger tenant, for a stronger covenant tenant, for example, a tenant with good financial backing or multiple locations, really does make the commercial unit less risky. And so you can put a higher capitalization rate on that, which means that you get the higher value. Now, obviously, we're in a bit of a strange period of time. Different commercial units now, they have different risk, so to speak. The key players that we thought were going to do really well have not done very well throughout COVID at all. We can see that with the amount of letters that I get from my clients' tenants saying, we're only paying 10% of the rent this quarter. Oh, great, well done. We were not expecting that from you. Whereas the tenants who we didn't think that were going to do that well, for example, charity shops, have continued paying their rent throughout the whole of COVID. It's actually a bit of a miracle, but they've believed that they will keep paying, so they have kept paying. And certainly I've seen that across the board. So what we would be looking at now is tenants who were able to meet their financial commitments, not just paying the rent, but also paying service charge and insurance throughout COVID. That would make them a really strong covenant right now. We can look at lease terms as well. So, for example, removing break clauses, having landlord-friendly rent reviews, having forward repairing and insuring leases rather than internal repairing and insuring leases. All of these things are valuable for a landlord, so they up the value of the lease. Ooh. went too fast. We can also put better security in place. So having a big deposit, having a good guarantor, although guarantors at the moment probably not worth their weight in gold, but having a really good deposit, so 9 months, 12 months, if you don't think the tenant's of good financial standing, really helps your case, really reduces the risk in the lease. Longer term, the longer that we can guarantee this rent coming in for, the better, which longer terms with rent reviews, really good. Now, we're in a market where leases are now being negotiated at 5 years. So within that 5-year lease, you want to make sure that you're getting some landlord-friendly clauses in there. And of course, increasing the rent. But right now, increasing the rent is going to be tough. So we want to do everything else we possibly can to decrease the risk in that commercial lease that ups the value of the property. And we can do that from wherever we are, because if we've got those tactics in our belt, every time we come up to a lease event, so rent review, break clause, lease renewal, we can be looking to put this in place and always increasing the value of our commercial property. And that goes for mixed use as well. Let me show you this, impact of rent increase. This is one of my clients. This is the most recent mixed use property that I worked with him to buy. The rental income on completion was £43,168. Great. Purchase price, £340,000. Brilliant. Like really, really good. This was found, didn't sell at auction. And we picked it up afterwards. Most people stay well clear of that. There was a little gem here. Pick this up at auction. Within the first 2 months, we upped the commercial rents to increase the rent per annum to £45,000. Might not seem a lot, but increase the value to £375,000. We took the money back out. And that was in a falling market. That was also with an incredibly high capitalization rate. The higher the capitalization rate, the higher the risk, the lower the value of the property. As I've been saying, we want to lower the risk on the leases and decrease the capitalization rate, because if we used 9.75% capitalization rate, the value of this asset would be $461,500. The amount of cash we could take out with that, gives greater opportunities. So this is why we need to be thinking about how is this going to grow over the term. Can we get that capitalization rate to 9.75%? I'm confident we can with the new leases that we're putting in place here. I'm just not going to test my clients' luck this side of COVID with the tenants a little bit wobbly. So instead, we'll keep that in our back pocket, and we'll probably look to do it in 2 years' time. That's fine. We've just pulled out £35,000. My client has since gone and bought with that another mixed-use property, which is a barbershop with 2 commercial above. Same, really good gross yield, good net profit, and we can keep recycling based upon this mixed-use strategy. So that does not require going out and doing anything about it. So let me go quickly through what we're then looking at. If we're wanting to buy properties like that, how do we look at it? Well, I have a property acquisition strategy.
Natasha, sorry to interrupt. You have about 5 minutes left.
Absolutely fine. Property acquisition strategy. I use the 6 buckets method. You want to be filling each of these buckets when you're buying property. We've looked at growth potential. How can this be a moving asset? You want to look at demand in the area. You want to look at yield, so make sure that you're getting a good yield. You'll always have a target yield that you're trying to hit. You want to be looking at type of property, what works really well in this area. You want to be looking at characteristics of the property and how does that fit for you. I really like beautiful looking buildings. I don't care what they look like on the inside. I know that beautiful looking buildings let. Part of my strategy, might not be part of yours, but something that I definitely look out for. And then we look at the search. Where are we looking for? And again, I believe it's been reiterated this morning, there's no one size fits all area. You have to pick the area that works for you. Create a checklist. Put together the type of property you're looking to buy. Where is there demand now that you can fill immediately? Where will there be demand that you can acquire in the future? What areas are you going to buy in? And what type of property are you looking to buy? What yields are you going to aim for? What growth strategies are you going to use to ensure assets or opportunities? What are your non-negotiables? There always needs to be non-negotiables. For me, I don't buy concrete buildings. I don't think they look very nice. Similarly, I don't buy anything that won't grow in value. If it's just going to be bog standard, I'm not interested. I want something a little bit more interested, preferably with a lease. I love leases. And how are you going to find these properties? You need to put in place all of that. And the only way you're going to also be able to achieve growth is to negotiate. Please become an absolute expert in negotiation. It takes time. You don't start off being a good negotiator, but by the time you've been in the industry for a couple of years, I mean, I've been in the industry now for 12 years. I know what's going to happen when people come out to negotiate, but keep it simple. Define what you want. Right reasons the other party will be satisfied, right reasons the other party will oppose, and then make sure in your negotiations, your positives outweigh the negatives. And then from there, present your offer in a positive light. And usually that works really, really well. But remember, it tends to take 3 times of going back to the drawing board for your offer to be accepted. So offer low, but always look to agree a win-win solution. So there we have it. Today, very, very quickly, I've been through an asset management strategy that works really, really well. Why you need to focus on buying moving assets. And I've given you an overview of the 6 buckets method you can use as an acquisition strategy. Now, if you want to go through that in more detail, I appreciate we've only had 30 minutes today. You are more than welcome to come and ask me more questions in the Members Club. We build these strategies in the Members Club. My Members Club is the only offering that I have right now. This is where I work with my clients to build their property portfolios. If you'd like to come and ask me more questions, come and try us out. I've put the link in the chat box here. It's ncrealestate.co.uk/pen, PEN. If you'd like to try the Members Club out, come and work with me for 7 days and just see what I'm all about. See the strategy that we've put together in the Members Club. Come and try us for 7 days and you know, come and get all of this awesome goodness. This is where we put together these strategies, these asset management strategies, and the strategies for the long term of your property portfolio. So I don't very often offer 7-day free trials, but for you guys today, that is there right there. So whilst you're on this webinar, come and join and see what I have to offer. Come and join and try. You know, we look at building strategies. So get started with that. This is vital. Once you get your strategy down, you can build very easily from there. Thank you, everybody. This has been awesome. I hope you've taken away a huge amount from this.
Thank you, Natasha. Once again, it was a pleasure to have you. Amazing. I would, again, recommend everyone to go for the trial that she's given for 7 days. The link is in the chat box. So again, do go and go for the trial of 7 days. One thing again, I observed over my lifetime and experiences that the personal and the professional development, like the conscious focus to keep improving your skills, which I mentioned earlier as well, is key. And I mean, it just doesn't, you gotta focus on improving your skills. You gotta focus on improving your, communication skills, your hard skills, the professional skills, and and the personal skills. And this is where all the speakers and people that kind of they're helping people out come in the picture, where you can actually go and take their, strategy sessions, watch their seminars, watch their webinars, watch their videos, subscribe to their YouTube channels. I've been doing this for many, many years. And like I said, my conscious focus at any given time is to keep improving our skills so we can all achieve more. So I heavily recommend everyone to go and get that free trial from Natasha. Natasha, again, a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, I'm actually gonna go myself this time. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. We founded Property Entrepreneurs Network. Well, we started about 2 years ago. The idea was conceived about 3 years ago, but we actually really started with the idea about 2 years ago. It kind of took a shape and form over the last 2 years into a social media platform. So in fact, it's the world's first social media platform that you can go now and chat with people, connect with investors, connect with property developers, connect with agents, connect with pretty much all sorts of property professionals from UK at the moment, and we're going to be venturing out to other countries as well. But it's been an absolutely amazing journey. We have 25 representatives on the country. We've got a great team, like a great team, tech team behind the scene. So it's, like I said, it's been an amazing journey. I'm a developer myself. We develop behind the scene. I'm also an investor. I've sold 2 businesses before this, starting PEN. One of them was turning over £1 million in revenue, and we sold another business again after that as well, which was built practically working from home. And after being able to sell 2 businesses, I got to a point where I was like, how do I go from building a business that had about 47 people working, 25 full-time and 25 full-time and 22 part-time? How do I go from that point to a point where I can potentially build a much larger business? And that's where the idea of PN was conceived from. So a little bit about my background. So I'm actually a qualified financial advisor. I'm also a qualified consultant. I came as an immigrant into this country, and this is something that I tell everyone. Look, guys, if as an immigrant, if I can make it, so can you. I'm just an ordinary person who just works really hard and learns from all the smart people around him, so I could work smart as well. Again, it's not about me. I'm sharing it. So how can you take this and apply to your journey in the journey of growing your property portfolio? So I came as an immigrant, and then I went through about 20 odd jobs over a period of 2 years, and kind of got really fed up. Some of you might have heard my story, so bear with me. I'll be very quick. And I got to a point where I started my own business. Initially, I struggled so bad. It was just unbelievable, almost suicidal. I was emotionally down. I was financially down. In fact, in a very bad state. But then I kind of decided that I'm going to come out of the situation. I'm going to make things work. That's when I actually got heavily into personal and professional development. And I really kind of focused on reading as many books as I could potentially get hold of. Back in those days, there was no Audible. But all I could do was walk into a library. I'd pick up like 5 or 6 books. That's all they would allow me. And I'd go home, read those 5. In fact, there was a week when I actually read literally 5 books in a single week. So I'd borrow the books from a library, take them back. And then we potentially got to a point where Audible was launched, which is a blessing again. So I listen to audiobooks these days very heavily. Again, my focus is personal and professional development. But what am I going to cover in my talk is, in this COVID situation, while you're sitting at home, how can you create a substantial income for yourself? And I'm going to cover that. So bear with me. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to give you some gifts that will help you accelerate, like I said, your property journey. So bear with me here. So yeah, I was telling you about myself that it was just such a hard time when I was building my previous business. And the learning that I went through building that business to over £1 million was absolutely amazing. How do you systemize things? How do you automate things? How do you delegate? Leadership skills, being able to manage a team of 47 people. I can assure you that you will not be able to sleep. You will not be able to do anything with focus, because it just takes so much off you when you're leading a large team of that scale. So that was my journey. So when we sold that business, I decided to go into consulting. I did consulting, business development consulting for about 3 years till we got to a point where we started PEN. I started investing back in 2003 into property. So it's been a long period of time since I bought my first property, but that was very much passive. And then we got to a point where we were doing a development in Wembley, which is a 4 million GDP development. I was an investor on board, as well as a operationally active behind the scene. And then from that point, we took PEN to a level where now it's a network of 15,000 people. And we've already launched our phase 2. We have at the moment 700 plus people registered on the platform. More than half of those 700 plus people registered are property investors. And at the core, the network is about 15,000 people. So when I send a message, it goes on to around 10,000 people, which is amazing, because all this happened, and I wasn't actually expecting this, but all this happened in literally the last 14 or 15 months, if I can think correctly on top of my head. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Like I say, if I can do it, so can you. All you gotta do is focus, and conscious focus on improving your personal and professional skills. And what do I mean by personal and professional skills? There's a clear distinction there. Personal skills are your interpersonal skills. So being able to lead your team, being able to create communities, being able to network, being able to create good relationships in your business. These are some of the soft skills that I believe, the personal skills that I believe that anyone needs to kind of improve to be able to grow their business. And these are the soft skills. But what are the hard skills? The hard skills are some of the skills that you learn today. So for example, Susannah was sharing property sourcing skills. Now, these are hard skills. These are professional skills which actually need physical learning from someone, because you can't learn them. In fact, even the soft skills, in many cases, you need a coach or someone to give you feedback on, so you could see with self-awareness. It's all about increasing your self-awareness. You could see where your personal skills stand at and how can you improve those, as well as including your leadership skills, being able to lead a team, create communities, like I said. But on the professional skill side, you have the sourcing skills, you have the land development skills, you have being able to find below market value deals, being able to find good buy-to-let deals. For that matter, majority of the investors still invest in BTLs. In fact, and the funny thing is, the BTLs are not necessarily as profitable anymore. But even then, most investors still invest in buy-to-lets. So being able to find below market value deals, being able to create a rent-to-rent portfolio, serviced accommodation portfolio, being able to find land deals, develop land deals, conversions, HMOs, these are all the hard skills or the professional skills in property business that one must learn to be able to grow their property portfolio. And I also believe that these skills, like I said, cannot be just learned on its own. You gotta have either a mentor, or maybe just reading very heavily, or you're a part of a network or a community that will allow you to be able to learn all of these skills. Now, what is the one thing that will help you create good income, or in fact a six-figure income, if you put effort into it in this COVID scenario while sitting at home? This is a question I believe everyone must ask themselves, because if you can create, or if you can learn those skills, and if you can position yourself in the market, which will allow you to create, like I said, a six-figure income, potentially a seven-figure plus portfolio, or a seven-figure plus revenue business, then that's the way to go. I mean, I always believe that money is only a part of life. It's not necessarily the whole life. And one must learn to remove the challenges of money out of their way as soon as possible, because then you can actually start to focus on real life, which is spending time with your family, being able to learn new things, being able to travel. But until and unless you haven't really kind of moved the money challenges out of your way, it just becomes so much more difficult. You can't actually travel, you can't spend too much time with your family. There's so many things that most people want to do, cannot do, because money is a challenge. But what are those skills that you can potentially learn which will help you create a six-figure income, or create a seven-figure plus portfolio, create a seven-figure plus revenue business? What are those skills? And what I call them high income skills. And this is something that I've shared in some of my previous videos as well. So if you watched it, fantastic. If you haven't, I'm going to give you a list of some of the skills that you can potentially learn and make money while you're sitting at home and potentially make a six-figure income if you become good at it, if you really consciously focus to improve those skills. Now, what are those skills? I believe content writing or direct response marketing is key. If you haven't learned that, maybe it's time to focus, because even as a property entrepreneur, when you start looking for property investors, when you start looking for other traders in the business to be able to do deals behind the scene, when you're speaking with estate agents, you're going to need copywriting skills or direct response marketing skills. Very, very important. For those of you who don't know, direct response marketers can very easily make over £100,000 a year, very, very easily. In fact, those who are at the top 5%ers or the top 1%ers can make over £1 million a year, some of them even more. Like I said, this is an essential skill for anyone to learn, regardless of the business you're in. If you're in property business, like I said, you're still going to need it, because direct response marketing is what will allow you to create a good network and potentially get to a point where you can find investors for yourself. The second skill that you can potentially learn is networking. Now, we have a guest who is also a representative. He's going to talk about networking. So I'm actually not going to cover that. But just so you know, networking, for those of you who don't know, people who have very, very large networks tend to monetize them, and then monetize them very, very well, easily allowing them to make six-figure income. Another skill, which I believe everyone needs to learn, which will again allow you to create a six-figure income, and again, essential skill within the context of property is, again, network is one of them as well, but another one is leadership skills, guys. I believe if you can lead a team effectively, it's almost like, imagine, you know, if you were given the job to recruit the next Manchester United team, and you went on to find all those skills that you need to create the best team, that's your leadership skills. And if you can polish, if you can improve your leadership skills, which is what you're going to need when it comes down to property business, or for that matter, any business, but we're talking in the context of property business, you're going to need some really, really effective leadership skills. And I know for sure, tell you with experience, that you can very easily make six-figure. In fact, you can very easily create a seven-figure plus business with very, very good leadership skills. And if you're sitting at home through this COVID period, I believe these 4 or 5 skills that I've mentioned, if I've missed something, I'll pick it up. It's in my presentation. But leadership skills, networking skills, copywriting, direct response marketing skills, and then besides that, negotiation skills is another one. But besides that, the hard skills. So for example, being able to find below market value deals, being able to find land deals, development deals, being able to create a personal and professional brand, which will allow you to attract people so they can bring deals for you. So creating a strong personal and professional brand is, again, skills that will pay you very handsomely. So these are some of the skills that I believe one must learn, regardless, like I said, of the business you're in. And if you're in property business, this applies to property business as well, which will allow you to very easily create a 6-7-figure business. And these are some of the skills that personally I've learned over I started in my business with my parents when I was 14 years old, and I'm 40 now. So that's been 26 good years that I've been running multiple businesses. So I've been fortunate enough, I've been lucky enough to get the opportunity to be able to create a team, to be able to lead a team. Like I said, now we have 25 representatives on the country with a good referral team, which is, I think, at about 19 or 20 at the moment. And then now we are creating the inner circle as well, which is allowing us to expand our team further as well. So these are some of the skills that you can potentially work on when you are sitting at home in COVID situation, either through reading books or joining a network or taking mentoring or training. And I think if you were to pick up any one of those, don't go on about many of them at any given time. Take one challenge at a time. But if you were to pick any of those challenges and say, you know, for example, if you think about it, if you go and read about 10 books on a single subject, you tend to become the top 10 percenters in that particular subject, because now you've read so much about that subject. That is what you need to do. Either go and read books, or go and have, find yourself a mentor, or go and take some training. That will allow you to become the top 10, top 5, even down to the top 1 percenter in a particular subject, which will allow you to create the income around it. So yeah, that's me. That was my very quick, fast-paced talk. If I speak a bit fast sometimes, accept my apology on that. But that was my fast-paced talk. But at the same time, we've created 4 different layers in the PEN, where you can collaborate with PEN from potentially no investment, by becoming an affiliate member or a referral member to PEN. So let's say if you were to, for example, recommend us an investor or someone who would take on any of our services or products, you'd get a commission. So if you'd like to become an affiliate member or a referral member, do send me a WhatsApp message on the number that I'm going to leave in the chat box. I've just left mine. No, sorry. I think it's just gone private. My apology on that. I've just left my number in the chat box. So if you'd like to become an affiliate member with PEN, there is absolutely no investment from you. All you got to do is refer business to us, and that will lead to commissions for you. So you can potentially make money by referring people to us, sitting from home, from the comfort of your own home, and make some money. And then we have 3 more layers where you can become an inner circle member for as little as £1 a day, which will give you a lot more benefits. You can also take PEN property trainings, where we share about personal and professional branding, how to generate more leads, how to find more investors, and a lot more around property. For example, being able to find below market value deals, being able to find HMOs, being able to analyze any kind of deals, being able to find land deals, conversion deals. We teach all of that in our trainings, and you can take these trainings for as little as £3 a day. So if you'd like to take trainings from us, again, send me a WhatsApp message and I'll get you across the line on that. If you'd like to become an inner circle member, it's only £1 a day, and there's a ton of benefits that you could potentially get from becoming an inner circle member. Send me a WhatsApp message and I'll take you through it as well. So that's it from me. If you have any questions regarding being able to grow your property portfolio, if you guys don't know, between India and UK, I have a multi-million pound portfolio. So if you would like anything regarding strategic positioning of your business, which will allow you to grow your portfolio and your property business, do send me a message with a word called session, and I'd be more than happy to give you a strategy session. So that was actually my gift to you that I wanted to give you at the end of it. I'm more than happy to give you my personal time where I can give you a session regarding, there is absolutely no sales, none of that. I just give you the session and you take it away. If at the end of it, you want to join our inner circle membership, fantastic. Like I said, it's only £1 a day, but there's absolutely no sales behind this. All I want to do is just serve you, and that's all there is to it. So if you want that session, send me a WhatsApp message saying session, and I'll be more than happy to book that session for you. So that's it from me. These came off. So give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed my talk, so I could improve it for the next time. Thank you, Jasim. Thank you, Laura. Also, now we have a few more speakers. Let me welcome our young and energetic and very, very sort of focused representative, and he is an amazing human being. He's been helping other people in the industry and as well as all the other reps as well. And he's going to talk about how networking plays a major part in growing your property business. So please help me welcome Harry.
Thanks, Jack. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's well and enjoying the course so far. So I'm just going to talk about three main questions to start off. And the first one is why I chose networking. So the reason I got into networking really was I tried every other strategy. I remember with Jack, I was sitting there, I was doing sourcing one week, I was doing rent to rent the other week, and I couldn't pick one strategy to stick at. But while I was going through that time, I was constantly building a network of people around me, and the network was growing and growing and growing. And now we've been about 7.5 months doing this, and I've grown a network to about 15,000 people. Okay. One of the things why a network is so important in property is properties are people's business. For example, if you're a deal sourcer, you're going to need to find investors to invest in those deals. You're going to need to find the deals, and you're going to need to find power teams. Exactly the same for rent to rent. You're going to need investors to scale your business. You're going to need to find deals, and you're going to need power teams. So the only way you can do this is by connecting with a lot of people. I want to go into quickly the three best sort of platforms to network at the moment. Virtual network really where my key is. That's probably because I started the business during lockdown, and with COVID going on, it's quite important to still be able to carry on networking through these tough times. So one of the platforms which is really close to my heart is WhatsApp. I know a lot of you are probably in the PN groups, some of you may be in my HW property groups, but what WhatsApp really allows you to do is it allows you to network with a large amount of people just by sending single messages. A benefit of WhatsApp is people are more likely to engage. So on the other platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, when you send out a message, you don't see all your followers, all your connections interact with them. WhatsApp, you're a lot more likely, you normally get about 95% of the people will read your messages at least. Not all of them will interact, but it can allow you to ask questions and leverage other people's knowledge a lot quicker, because WhatsApp groups, again, are 24/7. So one of the ways I'd recommend of using WhatsApp is to join groups and add value to them. That's going to get you a lot more noticed within these groups. And when you start adding value to the group, you'll find a lot of experienced people who could experienced or unexperienced people who want to know more about your knowledge will tend to privately message you. And in the future, you will hopefully do some business with them. Now, growing a WhatsApp group yourself is also a great way to position yourself in the market, and I'd recommend most people try that. But I know a lot of people don't like large WhatsApp groups. So one thing that a lot of people don't really think about when they see these WhatsApp groups, and I tell people to start growing your own WhatsApp groups, is the number of people isn't really the important thing. It's how effective that network is. So if you're not looking to grow a large WhatsApp group for your business, what you could do is invite 20 people who you know in the property industry, invite them to your network, and you've got your own little WhatsApp chat. Although 20 people doesn't sound like a large number, each one of those people will know another 10 people. So in effect, leveraging the other people's contacts, you could possibly have 1,000 people network just having 20 people in your WhatsApp group. So that's the first platform. The second platform is Facebook. So Facebook is amazing for property. I know a lot of people are on there, and I know a lot of people we've seen a large increase of people using Facebook to network throughout property. So one of the ways to network is just adding value to Facebook groups. So I'm in about 156 property Facebook groups, and they're all UK based at the moment. And just by being part of those groups daily, I get about 100 to 200 notifications coming through with loads and loads of value. So I'd recommend everyone to go in those groups and post their own content. Again, a lot of people don't like posting content. One of the things is with networking and posting content is the fear of negativity, argument, confrontation. That's a big fear that seems to be around in the Facebook community. And I just want to share everyone, you can delete other people's comments. I know a lot of people don't really think about it, but yeah, if anyone comments anything bad on your post, you can delete it. Baby steps, if you don't want to start doing live videos, if you don't want to start posting, baby steps is just a comment on other people's posts, comment on their Facebook posts with open questions. I know quite a lot of people, basically most of the people who have commented on my Facebook posts, I normally send them a message and get a conversation going. That's one baby step, although it seems really simple just by liking and commenting these posts. People do notice, and these are baby steps how to get into content posting and start growing a larger network. Another really good platform, which I guarantee not everyone is using correctly, is LinkedIn. Okay, so LinkedIn is great for property, as most of you know, LinkedIn is more business suited. So what I'd recommend people doing on property is on LinkedIn is connecting with people in the property industry in your area. So that could be your investment area or the area you live in now. So on LinkedIn, what a lot of people do when they make connections is they just wait to connect with other people unless they meet them face to face, then they'll connect with them that way. What I do is I'll search for, if I was for example, if I was doing rent to rent, and I was doing it in Swansea, which I'm located now, I would be searching estate agents in the search bar. I'd be filtering it for a location of Swansea, and I'd also put the industry on real estate just to make sure. And I connect with every single estate agent in my area. Once you connect with those estate agents, another thing people don't do is interact with that network. I mean, I've got about 10,000 connections on LinkedIn. I know people with 20,000 connections on LinkedIn, but you go on their page and it says they're looking for opportunities. Now that's not an effective network. If they can't find a job, but they've got a network of 20,000 people, it shows they're not interacting with their network and they don't really know anyone in that network. So what I recommend doing is every single person you connect with on LinkedIn, have a conversation with them. Schedule a phone call, invite them to a WhatsApp or your Facebook group if you've grown it, invite them to your Facebook page, invite them to your Linkbook page, get some rapport with them and build a relationship with them. There's no point of interacting with people virtually if you're not going to do anything with it, and if there's not an outcome where you could start doing business with them. Another thing that a lot of people don't do when they're on LinkedIn is when you're actually talking to these people, a lot of people tend to use copy and pasted messages, or they tend to use the suggested messages used on LinkedIn. I can speak from experience. I've messaged about 7,000 people on LinkedIn over the last months. People don't reply unless it's a personal message. So when you are sending them messages, make it personal, even if it's just their name. What I tend to do is if they're in the property industry, if they're a deal sourcer, I'll speak to them about deal sourcing. I'm not looking for deals at the moment, but in the future I may be, or I may know someone who I can connect them with. I want to make this a bit more interactive. So I want anyone to put in the comments what their chosen strategy is. And I want to quickly talk about how they could use networking to take that as advantage. So if anyone could just put in the chat what your chosen strategy is. BR, rent to SA. Okay, perfect. So BR strategy, if you're investing in your local area, you need to build a network of builders, power team in that area. But a lot of people I know with BR don't invest in their local area. They travel to different places around the UK. So this is where a network is really important to you. As you're not in the area, you probably don't have that many contacts in that area. So what you need to do is, like I said with the LinkedIn, you need to filter that area, type in, for example, builders, and you need to start connecting with these builders. Tell them what you're doing. When you connect with people on LinkedIn and schedule a phone call, it's not like just cold calling them. You've built rapport already via your profile. Rent to SA, exactly the same with estate agents. A lot of people cold call estate agents. One thing that I did when I was looking for rent to SA, just contact them on my LinkedIn profile. The estate agent would look at my LinkedIn profile, see that I was in the property industry, see what I was trying to do, and the amount of content I was outputting. They'd be able to make the assumption that I was serious. That would make them more inclined to show me some more deals, and it would, of course, build rapport. What else have we got? We've got single lets. Again, if you're looking for tenants, long-term happy tenants, Okay, so if you were looking for tenants for single lets, again, you're going to need to build relationships with letting agents. So connect with letting agents online, have a list of tradesmen, plumbers, because you're going to be able to do the maintenance, need to be able to do the maintenance on the property. And what a lot of people do is when they don't have the connections themselves, they'll just reach out on Facebook and say, any recommendations for a plumber? Now, this is all good, but you don't have a list of a lot of plumbers. I can go on my phone now. I know I would have in certain areas where I've looked at, I know I'd have 10, 20, 30 plumbers on my LinkedIn connections with their number and email, so I could approach them, get a lot of different quotes from different areas. What else have we got? Land construction at the moment. Okay, well, maybe connect with people in your local council. Maybe connect with land construction. You're going to need builders. Connect with people in the area who are already in property, so investors already in the area, as they're going to know what is upcoming on the market, and you may be able to get the heads up. You'll also be able to leverage other people's knowledge via your network. So that's something a lot of people don't do as well. You need to be able to tap into your network whenever you need to ask advice from other people. PPN, PIN groups, that's their networks. They're great networks to use. Jump into them, but you need to be able to know them on a personal level. A lot of companies will have one broker, one architect or whatever, but you need to have options. A lot of times I've had to recommend people a couple of architects because I know a few of them are busy. So that's really essential to have a long list of contacts. Anyone have any other questions on how to grow your network? I've also Instagram. It's also a great way, but it's probably not the best way for property professionals. I would suggest to start using LinkedIn and WhatsApp as most as you can. Any other questions?
Harry, you'd be able to answer these questions. I think some of the guys have actually asked for your number. So would you mind leaving your number in the chat box so they could connect with you?
Yep, yeah, of course. So my number's 077.
Please write it in the chat box.
Yeah. We've also just launched, for anyone who's looking to grow a network, we've also just launched our premium group. So we've got about 10 different groups on our website, hwpropertysolutions.com. They cover Facebook, LinkedIn, and I think there's 7 now, or 7 WhatsApp groups as well. But the benefits we're giving to our premium members is we're giving obviously access to our premium groups, access to our network. So we'll have premium weekly events, content calendar. As a lot of people, when they're getting into property, they don't know what to post. So we put together 38 posts a month that you can send out each day, that just allow you to put a little bit of content and start growing your following. We give premium network tips. We do a one-to-one strategy network session. So based on your strategy, there's different ways you should be networking in different platforms which benefit you best. We also have in future social events, so you can build meaningful relationships together rather than just professional ones. And we will be recording all our events to give you a library of value and content. I'll post, yes, I will post that.
Harry, thank you for sharing your experience on networking. Let me ask you a question, Harry. Now, a lot of people would ask this question in their mind to how am I supposed to monetize a network? How are you doing that? I mean, you know how I do it, but everyone has different ways of doing it. How are you monetizing your network?
So a lot of people, because of the contacts we built up, a lot of people are new to property and looking for the sort of power teams. We offer the power teams for free to our network. So if you're in our network, what we can basically do is, if you're looking for an architect, we will connect you with an architect, and how we make the money is we charge the architect a referral fee. So that's one way. I know a lot of people do a lot of other things. They do training courses and stuff like that, but there's lots of different ways to
monetize. Yeah, certainly. You can definitely recommend builders, you can recommend architects, you can recommend planners, you can recommend brokers. There's so many ways to be able to monetize your network, and network plays a major part when it comes down to scaling your business. So thank you once again, Harry, for sharing that amazing experience shared there. For those of you who don't know, Harry has created a network of 15,000 people in the last 6 months, 7 months, correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, there. So if you'd like to learn more about how to network more effectively and what kind of channels, and please do get in touch with Harry. He'd be able to give you a strategy session, more than happy, and then go from that point. Thank you once again, Harry, for sharing your experience here.
Thanks,
Thank you. So please help me welcome the next man who I've learned quite a bit from, and I've said that a few times, but he's a person that I look up to sometimes as well. He's also a representative and an amazing human being. Please welcome Jasim Rahman Khazi. He's been looking after the tech for us as well. So welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Jack. How is everyone doing today?
Tell us about yourself, guys, in the chat box. How you doing today?
Yes, please. We're wanting to know how each one of you are doing, what's happening.
Show us if you're eating something and you felt hungry, you just got up in the middle and then you went off to eat something. But no, share with us your journey. What is it that's happening in your life? What was the last item of food that you ate? And was it sugary or not? Because I'm craving sugar at the moment.
You need to stack up some chocolates, Jack. Some candy next to you.
No. But no, Jasim is actually going to share some of his experience when it comes to being able to find development deals, land deals. He's also going to share some of the other aspects around flips and development. So Jasim, over to you, buddy.
Thank you, Jack. In fact, guys, the topic that I'm going to talk today is not about how to find a deal or how to do a project, but I'm going to talk to you about the whole development life cycle. This is a topic which, if I go into depth and in detail for each item, I could speak maybe for a day or hold a 2-day session just covering the whole thing on that. So I have tried to make it as concise as possible. I'll start sharing my screen and there we go. We start with thank you. No, I'm just kidding, guys. So I'm here to talk to you about what a development life cycle is. It starts from strategy to opportunity to project, and then how you exit, and then loops back to strategy. Strategy can go either ways. That's why the double-ended arrow on strategy. I'll very quickly cover what each one of these entail and how you could possibly apply it to your situation and your projects. This is not specific to development or conversion. It can be applicable to both. It could be applicable to flip. One place where this might not really be applicable is rent to rent. Apart from rent to rent, this could be used for anything else for that matter. So going down to strategy, you need to have a clear goals of what you want to do, the vision and mission of what you're set out to do, and your value system. Because when you meet other people, you gel well with people who have similar value systems, and they could be your potential JV partners for that matter. Moving down to next, you need to have a very clear business plan. Susannah in the beginning of this session did mention about business plan and how she does it and what she has. Here, I'm going to take snippets from business model canvas because I rely on that extensively. Business model canvas has two broad heads, which is the cost and the revenue, and then how the whole plan gels with each other. So you have the value propositions, and in the right in the center, then you have your costs, like who are your partners, who's your power team, what are the things that you need to do, what are kind of resources you need for your business, And on the revenue side, who's your customer, what kind of relationships with them, and how do you reach out to them? So Susannah specifically spoke about your revenue streams today in terms of your customer segments. How do you reach out to them? She reaches out directly, what kind of relationships, and what value she provides to each one of those customer segments. So these values directly link up with your customer segments as well. To deliver these values, you need these on your cost side of the structure. So once you have a clear indication of what you're delivering, your next steps becomes much easier. Because until and unless you are very clear about what you want, you could be all over the place and not achieve anything. Trust me, guys, I've been in that situation, but then at the same time, now I have brought myself down to a few clear things that I need to do and what values that we provide and who are my customer segments in that. Moving down to the next. It's good at a strategy level that you are very clear, but you need to deliver. How do you do that? So you need to start with spotting or sourcing opportunities. Now, what opportunities are those? Are they flip deals? Are they build to rent? Are they conversion deals? Are they land with uppers? Use tools like Nimbus for that matter. Build. Harry just said how important it is to network and build those relationships with estate agents. They will send you deals, off-market deals also at times. So that's how you could possibly spot an opportunity. Once you've spotted, you need to do your due diligence. Now, in due diligence, I like to repeat, due diligence can never be 100% watertight, guys. But at the same time, you can keep doing due diligence and never do a project. So you need to have a risk reward balance where you decide, okay, I'm comfortable, I will move forward. I'll take the leap of faith. So there are 4 different stages in due diligence. One, is it possible? Like for example, a building, you want to convert it into a commercial complex, you want to convert it into apartments. Is it even possible to convert it into apartments? How many apartments can we do there? So you're looking at the possibility. Is there a demand? Have you assessed the market? Have you seen the supply side of things? Then you go on to feasible. Is it feasible from a planning point of view? You're just evaluating everything, whether it is actually feasible to do something like this. Then technically, is it viable? Do you have all your technical connections? Is the building strong enough to add 2 more floors? If you're talking about adding floors or adding more units. I'm just explaining a few. It is not a whole list, but what I'm just saying, I hope you get an idea of what are the things that how you could do your due diligence. And last but not the least is financial profitability. From your due diligence side of you, how much profits are you making? So in your business plan, you would have decided, you have a clear idea of what you want to do. You have identified types of projects. You have identified, I will do projects which are 25% of GDV or whatever that it may be. So do these financial profitability match with your earlier identified financial profitability indicators? Once you have done this, now you need to secure the opportunity. I use this term extremely and very often is win-win. Only thing at the time when it is win-win, it makes sense for both. You have a deal. Otherwise, win-lose is never a deal, guys. So how do you secure a win-win opportunity? There are various ways of negotiation strategies. So like Jack sometime back just said, negotiation is a very important soft skill. So what are the ways in which you could negotiate? You could outright purchase at a price, agree on a price and outright purchase. If not, if you think you cannot pay that price upfront, there are certain parameters which the vendor or the estate agent is saying, propose a overage. If not overage, see if you can do a JV where the landlord or the vendor brings in the piece of land, you go and do all the developments, and then you split the profits. Or you go for an options agreement. If it is land without any planning, you want to do planning gain on it, you will buy it subject to planning. So you have an options agreement in place. You do vendor finance, where vendor is financing the purchase for you if he's not in need of money immediately. Then you have delayed completion. Delayed completion is slightly different, where you just agree based on certain reasons. And then last but not the lease option. So as you see, each topic is something which we can delve into deeper. But today I'm just here to cover and show you the breadth of it, not the depth of it. And moving down next, in terms of you have your business plan, you know what you want to do, you've identified an opportunity which will help you meet your business plan and your business goals, and you are moving down to the project. At the project stage, you have secured the project, you know now you're going to start delivering. So the first thing is your SPV. If you're doing it by yourself, if you're doing it as a company, as a joint venture, or however it is, it's always, I personally feel it's good to have an SPV for each project. But guys, speak to your accountant, speak to your financial advisors to know which is the best way, and tax advisors as to which is the best uh, mode to go ahead for you. You have your SPV. After you have your SPV, get all your finance sorted. You might be putting the equity yourself, or you have private investors to put the equity and a development finance to submit everything else, get you all other finance. So you've arranged for your finance. Then you have your power team. You have the roles and responsibilities for all the members of your power team. One possibility where you could look at the roles and responsibilities, if you look at REBA Project Matrix, Royal Institute of British Architects, they have a very good roles and responsibility matrix which you could look at. Then you have your solicitors helping you with all your legal searches to ensure the site is viable and you're able to do. And before you start, ensure you have your insurances in place, because anything that goes wrong, it's your insurances which is going to cover you. And now you are at a stage where you're in a complete state of readiness to start execution on ground. So do you have your project program, which clearly defines the sequence of activities, what activity is dependent on something else earlier, and how do you go about? Then is your contract administration in place? So by contract administration, I primarily mean you have contracts, roles, you have agreed for a specific scope and a price with each member of your power team, and you've signed a contract, which is a legal document, and the contract administration is responsible for ensuring they're delivering on time. If there's anything that needs to go to them legally, anything as such, all of that happens through there. So you know exactly what's going on, and they will help you keep the project on track. Next, project management. The role of a project manager is to deliver the project and take away the hassles of coordination and bring it all in place and do it for you. On-site execution, your labor team, or if you have hired a main contractor, it is their responsibility to do it for you. Then de-snagging and completion. So you have your whole life cycle of project alone. Moving down to the last of the elements is your exit. Do you have your exit strategy clearly defined? Ideally, you should have as part of your business plan. So you know whether you're going to be building to rent, or you're going to be building to sell, or you're just doing a planning game. So how are you exiting out of the opportunity? You need to be very clear about it. Sometimes you might want to change your exit strategy mid or towards completion of the project because the market scenario has changed. You had based it on your exit strategy based on certain assumptions. Those assumptions are no longer valid or don't hold good. So how do you ensure you make sufficient money out of it? At that stage, you need to relook at your exit strategy, and then you're sure of how do you go forward. So either ways, you need to have very strong marketing. This is where the 7 Ps by Susannah will come very handy. So how are you going to market it out? Then you need to close your books of accounts. You need to exit by, if you had investors, if you had development finance, you need to pay it all off. You have your dividends, you distribute between the and then you close. But this last element is the most important, because you see, it goes back to circle strategy. So capture all the learnings you've had throughout a project and throughout the whole life cycle of a project, because these will help you not to repeat and do better. So if you have done something wrong, if you have, there's something that you can modify for the next project, always have a document or a book which shows your learnings, stage by stage learnings. This learnings is not something that comes only in the exit, it comes all through, but in the exit, it'll be captured as a binding document which is there with you all through. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you very much. I know it was a lot which I've tried to summarize and cover as quickly as possible. So if you want to talk to me or have any more further questions, please feel free to reach out. This is my number. I will also drop my contact details in the chat. So if you want to reach out, if you want to connect with me, please feel free to do so. It will be my pleasure to help you in your journey.
Thank you, Jasim, once
Thank you,
again.
Jack.
Thank you, Jasim, once again. Every time I watch your presentation, there's always something, even the tiniest of the detail, there's always something that I can always take away with me. And I've been with you for a long period of time.
Thank you.
So it's always a pleasure to have you doing these presentations, and they are very, very informative. And also for those who are working on a flip deal or a development deal or a HMO conversion or any thing to do with development, guys, Jasim is your man to reach out. He has a lot of technical knowledge. He had a very limited time today to share any of that, but he has a lot of technical knowledge that will help you save a lot of money, as well as deliver a much more effective projects behind the scene. So thank you, Jasim, once again. Please do share your number in the chat box so people could message you and potentially book a session with you. I hope that's okay. I haven't actually asked you for a session, but I hope you don't
Obviously,
mind.
Jack, that goes without saying.
Yeah, so do leave your number, and guys, if you'd like Jasim to give you a quick fiery session, he would be more than happy to do so. His number, his business card is in the chat box. So yeah, thank you, Jasim, once again. So now we have, he's a company representative, as well as an amazing human being, but also the fact that he has turned out to be a really good entrepreneur. He's built himself a rent-to-rent portfolio of 11 properties. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mazi.
That is correct.
He's built himself in literally a short period of 11 or 12 months now. So please help me welcome Mazi, buddy. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you very much. So excited to be here, and quite pressurizing speaking after so many great speakers. Thanks for the pressure, Jasim.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here, buddy. I know a lot of people who don't have a lot of money around. They want to focus on rent to rent. Do share with us, what are your thoughts on rent to rent? How have you managed to grow your rent to rent portfolio, and what is it that people can do to grow theirs?
Absolutely. So what I'm gonna do, actually, if Jasim allows me to, I'm gonna share my screen and I'll just talk through my story, and hopefully all the information that I share here is gonna be helpful to the guys. Right, there we go. Okay, I'm hoping you guys can see this. Can you confirm, please?
Yes, Mazi.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this rent-to-rent strategy that a lot of people have been talking about. So firstly, who is Muzi? So this is me and my two girls, Imani and Inara. And Imani is 3 years old. Inara is 5 weeks, actually. She was born just a few weeks ago. And right there, a lot of people ask me who this person is. I refer to her as my boss. I don't do anything without confirmation from this lady. This is my wife. So I always recommend to a lot of people, when you're getting into property, if you're starting out or if you're somewhere, wherever you are, you're going to get a lot of challenges. You always need to remind yourself why you are doing it. this slide here is my why. Whatever challenges I go through, I remind myself that these are the people that I do it for. So Muzi is short for Muzingaye Nduna. As you can tell, it's an absolute mouthful, which is why I shorten it to Muzi. I come from Zimbabwe. I came to England when I was 17, just a couple of years ago. So I've been here a while, and I started out doing engineering. I went to college, went to university, got qualified in Bachelor of Science Manufacturing Engineering, started working in the automotive industry, sort of worked my way up the corporate ladder, and ended up in Jaguar Land Rover as a manufacturing engineer. So what is this rent-to-rent thing that a lot of people have been talking about? So there's going to be a few people that are looking at this thinking, what is rent-to-rent? And there's going to be 4 different categories. So one is the person who's thinking, I have not got a clue whatsoever. What on earth is this rent-to-rent thing? That's one of you guys. You want to listen to this talk because this is going to help you. And then you're going to have those that are thinking, I've heard of it, but I'm not entirely sure what it is about. You want to listen to this too, because I've got something for you. You're also going to have those that I think, I know what rent-to-rent is, and I'm not interested. You might not be interested because you've heard bad things about it, or you might not be interested because you're currently following a different strategy that you feel is a lot more suited for you, it's a lot better for you. You still want to be listening to this because in the rent-to-rent strategy, there's certain skill sets that you can transfer to your strategy, whatever it is that you're doing. And also, it might also clarify some of the bad things that you might have heard about rent-to-rent. And then the last one, which is my favorite type of person, is the one who knows about rent-to-rent and currently actually doing it and absolutely loving it. So you want to be listening to this talk, and hopefully that will help you quite a lot. So a lot of you guys might have heard of the Rockefeller family. So Nelson Rockefeller once said, the secret to success is to own nothing and control everything. Now, this concept is known quite a lot. The likes of Uber and Airbnb use the same concept. Airbnb, one of the largest accommodation platforms that don't own a property. Uber, one of the largest transport platforms, but they don't own any cars. Essentially, it's the concept of controlling everything, but you own nothing. Getting cash flow from other people's assets. That's essentially what rent-to-rent is about. And I'm just going to go slightly deep into it to kind of clarify how that works. So this is an illustration. So in terms of property, you're going to have people that will be buying houses, and then you're going to have people like myself who actually rent properties and generate cash flow from them. I'm going to use this illustration, and just to keep the numbers simple, let's call this location, we'll say it's Coventry. Yeah. In Coventry, let's say the rental area for a property is about £1,000. And if you run it as a serviced accommodation, that's what SA is, a serviced accommodation. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to be generating about £2,500. And then the bills for that same property is £500. Okay. So I'm just going to go through the numbers if you were to purchase this house. Yes, this house is in Coventry, and you can find this house for £100,000. I'm joking. You won't. Okay. So purchase price is 100K. And when you're purchasing a property for a buy-to-let, you're most likely going to be getting 75% loan to value. That is, the person lending the money or the bank, the lender, are going to be giving you 75% of the purchase price or of the value of that property. And then you have to raise the remainder, which means you have to raise 25%. So you're raising 25%, which is 25K for this particular case. SDLT will be the stamp duty. And that's going to be around £3,000. The legals, i.e. the solicitor and some of the fees that you have to pay for the mortgage brokers, about £2,000. So your total outlay, the total amount of money that you are going to have to pay to purchase a 100K house is about £29,000. Let's say the mortgage is going to be about £500. It differs with your situation, but let's say the mortgage is about £500. Now, based on this current scenario, if you buy this house and you actually want to run this on your own as a serviced accommodation, your cash flow is going to be about 1,500. How did I work it out? Serviced accommodation income is 2,500. You're going to be paying a mortgage of £500. You're going to have to pay the bills of £500. Therefore, you're going to be making £1,500. simple numbers, yeah? If you decide to rent the property instead, therefore you're not buying the house, you're only setting up and you're also acquiring it. When you say acquiring it, you're signing a contract with the landlord and you're taking on the property, but you're specifying to the landlord that you're not the one living in the property, you're managing this property to do something else. So let's say you're going to be doing exactly the same thing where you're going to be running it as a service accommodation. You need about £4,000. In the £4,000, that's buying furniture, paying for the deposit, paying for the first month's rent potentially, and then any other tiny things that you might do for your company. About £4,000 is realistic. And in that £4,000, you're still going to pay the rent, which is £1,000, and you're also going to be paying bills, which is £500. And then that, therefore, your cash flow is £1,000. Now, just looking at this picture alone, you might be thinking, well, a cash flow of 1,500 is better than the cash flow of £1,000. But what you want to be thinking about is how much money you have paid into it to be able to make those kinds of cash flow. So to summarize this particular picture, for £29,000 of purchasing a property, if you're purchasing it, you're going to be making 1,500. But if you have 29K and actually take on properties the way that we've just showed on rent to rent, which is about £4,000, you can get about 7 of these properties, and therefore you'll be cash flowing £7,000. So this is just the concept that I was just showing before on the statements that Nelson Rockefeller mentioned, where you control everything, but you don't own it. So you're generating cash flow from other people's assets. These are houses that don't belong to you, you don't own them, but you're still generating cash flow from them. So what can you do with the rent-to-rent deal? Now, the reason I put this question is because quite a lot of people are actually under the impression that rent-to-rent is a strategy. A lot of people say that, and I understand why. However, rent-to-rent is not a strategy. Rent-to-rent is an acquisition tool. It's like purchasing. So no one can say purchasing is my strategy. It's what you do with the house after that, that is a strategy. So you acquire the property using rent-to-rent, and then you take it on to do serviced accommodation. You take it on to do HMOs. You take it on to then do social housing. Those are the strategies. The rent-to-rent is just the acquisition. So for those that are not aware, HMO is houses in multiple occupancy, where you actually rent out properties per room rather than the entire property. So you can acquire the property on a rent to rent and then actually put it up for HMOs. So you can rent to HMO, or you can rent to service accommodation. So serviced accommodation, for those that have never heard of it, a lot of people call it Airbnb. This is when you set up a property, an entire property, to be a bit like a hotel. So it's completely self-contained, and you can actually have the entire house as you would a hotel. So the picture on the right-hand side here is one of our units, which is in Coventry. It's a 1-bedroom house that can take 4 people, because the sofa that you're looking at there is also a sofa bed. So you can turn that into a bed, and this can turn into a bedroom at night. Therefore, you can take 4 people, because the other bedroom is also got a 2-bed. It's also got a double bed. So service accommodation is one of the strategies that you can do for rent to rent. HMO is the other. These are the 2 main ones, but there are a few other strategies that are popping up that you can do, i.e. the social housing side that I mentioned earlier on. All of them are strategies that you can utilize dependent on location, dependent on the type of property, dependent on what you feel like doing. And there's certain agencies that are looking for these properties that you can actually acquire, hand them over to these agencies, and you actually generate money without having to do anything yourself. So that's one of the really big benefits of rent to rent, where you don't have the responsibility in terms of owning the property, but you have the responsibility of managing it, which is less responsibility. You can then pass it on to someone else to actually continue running it in a certain strategy, and you can actually make money out of it. Okay, so where can you find these properties, I hear you asking? And there's a few ways of finding these properties, and I'm just going to go through these slowly. So online platforms, a lot of people that start out in property know that in terms of finding properties, I'm going to need to go to Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, Spare Room, Gumtree, all of that. So yes, online platforms are a very powerful way of actually finding them. It gives you a good idea of what the area is going to rent for. And if you spend at least an hour looking at one area for one type of property, very quickly you will pick up a sense of, okay, this is how much on average, I'm supposed to be paying for this type of property in this area. And the more you do this, the more you can actually quickly assess good deals and bad deals without having to do much digging if you know the area very well. I would recommend, if you're starting out, get on these platforms and start looking at properties and get a sense of what things are like. And it helps you quite a lot in understanding the area. Property agents. A lot of people are actually really scared of speaking to property agents, especially for the first time. I can understand, because I was one of those people. I was terrified of speaking to agents, and I've posted quite a lot of videos on Facebook talking about speaking to an agent. And this is usually at the start. So don't worry about it if you're starting out. Just go out and do it. The best way to get good at it, the best way to get rid of that fear, is to just go and do it. Speak to agents. At the end of the day, these are just other human beings. They just happen to sit on the other side of the desk. They also want to help you, believe it or not. They're also just doing their job. Just have a chat with them like a human being, and you will actually get some really good deals out of them. I also put in there sources. There's people that actually find these deals and actually pass them on. They don't necessarily want to manage them themselves. They just pass them on. So they also call themselves agents. You can also work with them. Direct to vendor, you can use leaflets or letters. So in each area, especially for houses in multiple occupancy, you can actually go online and find a register, which gives you a list of all the properties that are registered as HMOs. You can actually send letters directly to those people and let them know what services you can offer, how you can help them, and you can actually find some really good deals from that. Leafleting is another powerful one. Just send leaflets to all sorts of properties, and people do actually respond quite a lot, and you'll be able to help them out. Social media presence. And Harry spoke really well about the power of social media and trying to build up a network using social media. This is one of the best ways, because how many times do people just go on Facebook or just on Instagram and just looking at what other people are doing? That's how you want to capitalize this. You tell people what it is that you're doing. You use social media because that's where they spend most of their time. And the more people know what you're doing, the more likely you're going to get opportunities in terms of a rent-to-rent deal or whatever strategy you've decided to run by. Whatever it is, just tell people what you're doing and tell people how you can help them. Use social media. This is where majority of leads are actually going to come from. And the last one, which is my favorite, networking. Now, networking at the minute, because of the virus, it has predominantly been virtual. What we are doing right now, you sat where you are sat right now, listening to me, you are virtually networking. You have loads of other people around listening to the same talk that you can actually chat with. You can chat in private, you can chat in public. You can start speaking to people that are in the same mind frame, the same thinking process, where you can actually connect with them. If they're in the same area, you can actually do business. Networking is one of the most powerful ways of actually building your portfolio. And the PEN platform is one of the best ones to be able to do that, because it can actually help you in so many different ways, whether you're looking for someone who will help you actually build your portfolio or maintain your portfolio or actually manage your portfolio. All of that is available. And as you've heard from the people that I've been speaking already, there's quite a lot of value that is actually provided by this particular platform, and networking is one of the best ones. Okay, what could go wrong? So there's those people that were thinking, yes, I've heard of rent to rent and I'm not necessarily interested because there's so many things that could go wrong that I've heard nightmare stories, and it's natural for us to remember and also sort of like get attracted by the negative side of anything. And then that can actually feed our fear of actually going towards it. So I will just put it out there and say, yes, there are some things that could go wrong, but what good thing are you going to find that has no risks? So I'll just go through them now. No or not enough guest booking or tenants in a property. So for service accommodation, if you don't have enough people booking the property, yeah, you are kind of going to be in trouble. If you don't have tenants actually coming into your HMO, yes, you are going to be in trouble. Too much upfront cost. If you don't look at it very well, you might actually end up paying too much at the start. On the example that I gave earlier on, it's going to be £4,000. sometimes if you don't do it very well, or if you take on a property that is too run down and you end up getting yourself involved to try to get it up to standard, you might end up paying too much. No profits even at high occupancy. So I know a lot of people that are running service accommodation that are running at about 90-95% occupancy, which is brilliant, but they're not making a profit. Yes, that is possible. Or people that have HMOs that are actually full, but they're not making a profit. Yes, that is possible. So new regulations from governments that could actually change quite a lot of things. This is something that is possible. One of the ones that we talk about in HMOs is Article 4. This is actually common. This can happen. So what can you do about it? Landlords may want to pull out of an agreement after you've committed and put your money and put your time into it. And bad guests booking a property. This is one of the ones that a lot of people actually speak about. In a lot of the posts that I put out there talking about the properties that I've acquired, the experiences that we've had, I get the most response when I tell people that my property has been trashed, and I wonder why. Hey, so bad guests booking a property, especially in service accommodation, that is something that could go wrong. Now, I just don't want to highlight bad things here and not talk about what you can do about them. So on this slide, we're just going to talk about each of them and what you can do about it. So the first one, where the guests are not booking or the property in the property, or there's not enough tenants, you need to do your due diligence in marketing. Okay. So firstly, understand the area so that you understand what kind of demand you're going to have for service accommodation. Also understand what kind of tenants you're looking for if it's an HMO. So you could have students, you could have professionals, but what kind of professionals based on your location? Are you close to anywhere where people are going to want to stay there? Are you in a location that attracts service accommodation guests? Where exactly are you? Do your due diligence and try to understand the area. Marry up the area with the type of property that you're looking for and see if it works. And then after that, no matter what you find out on the due diligence part, you're not going to be successful unless you market. If you don't tell people about your property, if people don't know that your property is available, they're not going to come and take on your property. I was having a chat actually just a few weeks ago for someone who was struggling to get their property filled as an HMO. And what they were doing was advertising on the standard platforms like Open Rent, where you talk about all your property. You've got all these nice pictures, but they weren't getting anything whatsoever. And the question I asked was, if I walk past your property right now, would I be able to know that you've actually got that property? Is that property actually currently being rented out as a room or a room per room? And the answer was no, you wouldn't know. You have to go online. But then if you want people to always go online to find it and they can't actually tell just by seeing it outside, you've already halved majority of the people that are going to see that property. So I asked them to put a sign, even if it's a piece of paper, to say rooms for rent from about this amount of money. As soon as they did that, within 2 days, they had more viewings than they've had in the past few weeks, because there's a lot of people that were walking past that property, but had no idea that the property was up for rent. Okay, so too much upfront cost. That is possible. You need to negotiate deposit free. You need to negotiate rent free periods and take out furniture on credit. So these are just options of things that you can actually do to be able to reduce the upfront cost. Now, the reason why you'd want to do rent free periods or deposit free periods is because what you are doing is also increasing the value of the person, that person's property. You may be thinking, well, if I'm taking a property, why would the landlord allow me to live in that property for free? Firstly, you're not living in the property. You're actually running a business. The landlord is aware of it. You show them what it is that you do with other properties and invite them back after you've actually done the piece of work. They understand what it is that you're doing. They're more likely to agree to a rent-free period. However, you're not always going to get that. However, you need to try it. If you get these agreed, you will reduce drastically the upfront costs that you'll have to do. And then in terms of buying furniture to set it up, you can take out furniture on credit. Companies like IKEA will allow you to take out furniture on credit and pay for it on a monthly basis. Now, if you do that, you don't pay anything upfront. And guess what? The guests that start coming in, or the tenants that start coming in, are the ones that actually pay for that furniture. Therefore, you haven't had to pay anything upfront. Landlords may want to pull out. Very, very possible. we always say align your management agreement to protect your finance. So if they want to pull out at a certain period, and if the finance that you've put in, or the time money that you've actually put in, hasn't been pulled out yet, you can put in stipulate in the management agreements that if this were to happen at this point, and it's you who's canceled the contract, you'll be liable to pay X amount, so that you're remunerated. This is how you actually protect yourself, by using these management agreements, and make sure that the legitimate agreements that you actually get done correctly. No profits, even at high occupancy. That is actually very possible. You need to accurately deal calculate and make these rental offers. So when you actually do your calculations and looking at the market rent at that particular time. So for example, in an HMO, you need to know what the room is going to be renting out for before you even take on the property, before you even offer what rent you want to pay to the landlord. That way you will know that at this point, if it's a 5-bedroom house, I will be making profit on room number 4, or I will be making profit on room number 3, whatever it is. But you need to understand that beforehand. And also the same thing for serviced accommodation. You need to understand what the nightly rate is going to be, and how that will affect your bills and the rent, and how much you're going to be making, and at what point in the occupancy you're going to start making a profit. All of that needs to happen before you even take a step towards that property. New regulations. So I'm only going to speak about the serviced accommodation on this one. There's a 90-day rule in London, which stipulates that you can't have anyone stay in the property for more than 90 days. This is for serviced accommodation. And there's no other regulation for serviced accommodation at the minute. And this is at the minute because anything could change. They could actually bring in anything. But the good thing about regulations is they give us a heads up. We know a few, sometimes it could be 2 years before they actually implement any of the regulations in any area, which gives you enough time to be able to react. And for HMOs, like I mentioned, Article 4 is available, is in place in certain areas, and there are ways to actually sort of not get around it, but also capitalize on Article 4 and areas that don't have Article 4 that are yet to have Article 4. Okay, bad guests booking in the property. My favorite one, take necessary measures to reduce the chances. And I say reduce the chances because I'm yet to find someone who's got an absolutely 100% robust way of actually making sure that guests will not damage their property. I don't think there is, but you can take measures to reduce the chances, i.e. take IDs, take deposits, have cameras at the front of the door, all of that will make the guests feel like, okay, this is monitored. We can't just be doing silly stuff in here. And also, if they do damage the property, you can be remunerated by the deposit. So there's certain things that you can do if you can just make sure all of that is sorted. Okay, so in summary, what have we spoken about? What is rent to rent? What can we do about it? Where and how can you find it? And how do you maximize the profits and minimize your risks? And this is the main message here. Minimize your upfront cost and maximize your rental income. Now then, my presentation was supposed to end at this point. However, I'm going to just take you through bonus material. Yeah, Jack is not paying me for this bonus material. I'm going to campaign, but I'll share it anyway. So this is the painful truth about property that a lot of people do not actually tell you about. The mindset part, and I'm just going to go through these points that you need to be aware of, especially if you're starting out and this is your first time and you're thinking, okay, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? A lot of people are going to be sharing information about how much money they make and how many properties they've got. But what they don't talk about is the challenges as you go along, and you need to be aware of them. So you are going to lose money. You're going to get rejected. You are going to lose friends. I love that one. You're going to lose friends. It is going to be very challenging. You will feel lonely at times, and a lot of fear will set in. And like I said before, I don't like just showing some negative parts without actually telling you about the positives of it. However, it's really important that people are aware that this is actually true. This is something that will happen. And I know a lot of people that are watching here that are already in the property industry are thinking, yep, I've been through that. I speak to quite a lot of people. I've been through it. I'm still going through some of it. And it's important to be aware that it is coming. That way, when it does hit you, it doesn't come as a surprise. Okay, so what do we do about it? So this is what I say to myself whenever things like this happen. I'm going to lose money. I'm not losing money, I'm investing my money. So even if it looks like a loss, there's something that I'm learning about that particular scenario. So I'm investing in my education, and that education may be painful, but I am actually learning something. Whatever it is that hurts me at that particular point, I'm not going to lose that money again because I've learned from it. So it's an investment. You're going to be rejected. I will either learn or I will earn. Either way, I do not lose. So I love this part here. I actually have this written in my house. I read it all the time. This is in particular, if you were to go to an agent and you actually got the mindset that I need to be able to get a deal from these people, and then you go in there and you get rejected, or they say no, or you can't have this. Either way, you come out of there feeling like, okay, I've just lost. In everything that they say to you, there's something there to learn. So you walk into an agent, you're either going to come out with a deal or you're going to come out with a lesson. Either way, it's not a loss. Yeah. So keep that in mind. You're going to lose friends. Yeah, this is something that I've spoken to some of the guys that are actually on the group now. There's a lot of friends that we've lost. As you start stepping into this world, there's a lot of people that don't understand what you're doing that you're going to lose. Okay. So I like to put it this way. I am outgrowing my current circle of friends and therefore allowing wiser ones to enter my life. And that is actually true. You're going to start gravitating towards people that think the same as you. If this is what you're actually building passion about, the people that are passionate about what you're moving towards are the ones that will start entering your life. Those that don't share the same passion will start fading out of your life. However, you may feel like you're losing friends. Don't worry about it. It is going to be very challenging. The truth is, every skill worth acquiring comes with a challenge. That is how we grow. Everything that's worth getting will come with a challenge. If you don't actually go through that challenge, you won't actually grow. You won't enjoy the benefits that you get at the end. I like using the analogy of a slide. Even a child who enjoys the slide going down has to go up the steps first, and going up the steps is the challenge. And then you actually get the benefits of going down the slide at the end of it. So it is part of it. Embrace it, enjoy it as if possible. Okay, you will feel lonely at times, and that is very true. The way I look at it is I am transitioning into a circle that suits me more. So at the point that you move from the inner circle of people that you were thinking a certain way, once you start stepping out, going into what we call entrepreneurship, you're going to have a gap where you're stepping out of this current comfort zone, moving into a different one where a lot of people are going to embrace you that have the same mentality. That little gap might feel a bit lonely as you go through that. It's part of the journey. Embrace it. If you can, enjoy it. And a lot of fear will set in. So this is one of the ones that you're going to feel pretty much throughout. I still feel it as I go along. And every time you step into a new platform, as you're growing your comfort zone, you're going to get a lot of fear. So I heard once, and I think it was from Les Brown, that fear is false evidence appearing real. That's an acronym, false evidence appearing real. And I will feel the fear and do it anyway. The best way to actually eradicate fear is to go and do what it is that you're fearing, because in many cases, the way that we have it in our heads is a lot worse than how it actually is in reality. So just go and do it and you'll realize how much better it is. The big message I wanted to show in this bonus part is the fact that this is going to be difficult. However, it doesn't have to be a suffering. You are not actually alone. You are not alone. You have come to the right platform, speaking to people that are experienced, that are going through the same stuff. The conversations that you will have with people that are in this space are far much better than people that are thinking about doing it. So connect with the people that are in this channel, connect with the people that are already doing it. Even if you're already in property and you feel you're going through all of these difficulties, connect with people that are on this platform and just have conversations. This will be absolutely helpful. And hopefully the talk that I've just done about rent to rent, which has moved into mindset, was helpful to whoever is watching. And these are my contact details. If you want to have a chat with me at any point, feel free to get in touch.
Muzzy, that was an amazing, amazing presentation.
Thank you.
It's every time again, when I listen to you, there's always something to learn. There's something to take away. The mind stuff that you talked about, it's always a good reminder, because we tend to forget things. At the same time, I believe fear, we don't live in the ancient ages anymore where there's tigers hunting us out. There is no real danger of that caliber, that kind of fear. A lot of fear is created in our own minds. I love that part. And fear is all about, fear is always going to be there. That's how we are built. That's how we are genetically built. And I believe that it's all about facing that fear and doing it anyway. So thank you for sharing that. That's a good reminder for everyone there. Again, an amazing presentation. For those of you who are interested in rent to rent, Muzzy is your guy to get hold of. Muzzy, would you like to share your number in the chat box? I think Harry did, but I'd like you to share your number in the chat box, because I think some people were asking for your number, so you could give them a session if they like. I hope you don't mind me giving that away.
Yeah, sure. No problem. No problem. I'm happy to have a chat.
In the chat box.
There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that once again. Again, thank you for the presentation. And again, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm trying to bring in our next guest, which is our last guest. And I think there's some tech issues trying to bring him in. Just do bear with us for a couple of minutes till I try and bring him in. Just give me one sec. For those of you who are looking to build high income skills, which will allow you to make money while you work from home in the property industry, growing your portfolio and your property business, I'd be more than happy to give a strategy session. That will be a gift from us, from PEN, to you guys. Send me a WhatsApp message on, I'm going to leave the number in the chat box, 0788 696 2647 with the word session, and I'll be more than happy to book you in. Like I said, we're having some tech issues trying to bring our next guest in. So just bear with us if we can bring him in. Sorry guys, just bear with us. We have a expert SA operator, service accommodation operator, as a guest facing some tech issues. I think we might have to cancel him. I'm actually just chatting with him as we speak. He's struggling to get in on this one for some reason. we're still trying. Just give us a minute or so. In the meantime, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Any challenge that you might be facing, anything that is troubling you at the kind of the mindset level, the emotional stuff. I think a lot of people have loads of internal fears. I have been, again, fortunate enough to deal with many of those fears in my early years when I was running businesses. So I tend to have a lot less of them. I won't say I have none, but I can think of very, very few. So I've managed to, like I said, I've been very, very fortunate to be able to deal with many of those fears. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in terms of fears, because a lot of people come across, when it comes to actually taking that step, closing that deal, making that last move, making that major decision, they tend to struggle. And that's something that I've come across, that people struggle with. If you struggle with that, I'll be more than happy to give you a session. Again, absolutely nothing to sell at the back end or anything, none of that funny stuff. I just want to help people out. I just want to serve. Again, this is something that my team knows behind the scene, that I tend to come from the mindset of serving and helping people. And then I believe that when you serve people, you're more likely to attract that business anyway, even either it comes from directly that person or indirectly from someone else. Because when you serve people, they go and talk about it, they go and talk to other people, and then eventually that business eventually comes to you. But I always come from the serving mindset, and if I can help you in any way possible, I will be more than happy. Again, guys, I'm going to have to apologize for our last guest. He's struggling with tech, unable to get into this event for some reason. I'm unsure. I'm not sure why that is the case. But he's going to send a video apologizing for not being able to make it on this one. But we're going to invite him to our next event. So accept our apology on that. I guess we can all shoot off now. This session has been recorded. There will be a recording available at some stage, either today or in the next week or whatever, but it will be available to you, so you could watch it at your own convenient time. Again, thank you all for attending. Have an absolutely amazing day, and keep it motivated, keep it inspired. Take care, guys.